Testing, testing. Everything go well? Good. All right, you ready? Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order, a regular meeting of the Village Board on Monday, October 21st at 7 p.m. in the Germantown Village Hall Boardroom, and also can be accessed via WebEx. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with sections 19.83 and 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call shows all village board members present except for Trustee Pieper. Is she joining us via WebEx? Oh, yeah. All right, let me know and then we can include her within the minutes. At this time, we have a special treat for us. We have a Girl Scout troop from Amy Bell that's in the back of the room, and I'd like the girls to come up front, and they're going to lead us tonight in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thanks, right there, girls. So when you're ready, we'll all follow you.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. The girls are here to take a tour of the Village Hall to learn about local government, and Mr. Krecklow took them around and gave them a tour. So a great way to finish your tour and a great way to start our meeting. Thank you so much, girls. Next item on the agenda is President's Report. One thing to report, this Saturday, October 26th at 10 a.m. till noon, we're having our open house at the Public Works facility. So please come join us and take a look at our new Public Works facility. Everything is moved in there. It's in full operation. We'll have tours to go through and lots of things to see and people to answer any of the questions that you may have. So if you do get a chance and are free, come and see the new Public Works facility. It's on Donges Bay and Wasaki Road. For the next item of importance, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Madam Clerk to give us some information about voting. Madam Clerk.
Sure. Thank you. I just wanted to let everyone know, and for the record, for anyone watching at home, we are going to be offering our in-person absentee voting. That is going to be beginning tomorrow. Every day it begins at 8:30 a.m. Ballots will not be given before 8:30, but Tuesday and Wednesday, the 22nd and 23rd, 8:30 to 4:30. Thursday, we have extended hours, which will be until 6 o'clock p.m. Friday till 4:30, and we're also here Saturday. Saturday we'll be offering from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. The next week, Monday through Friday, we have extended hours on Friday until 5 o'clock p.m. And again, we'll be serving you on Saturday from 9 o'clock a.m. until 2 p.m. These hours can be found on our Village of Germantown website under latest news on the news flash on the home page if you didn't have a pen handy to document that. You will need to bring a photo ID and be registered to vote to receive a ballot. Registering to vote is now only happening in the clerk's office. You cannot register online. That deadline has passed. Thank you.
Thank you for that information. That's all I have tonight for President's Report. We can go on to announcements of forthcoming events of public interest, committee and department reports. We'll start with committee chairs with Trustee Kaminsky.
Public Works will meet in this room on November 12th, which is a Tuesday at 5:30 p.m.
Thank you. Trustee Rick Miller.
General Government and Finance met just prior to this meeting and will meet again on Monday, November 18th at 5:30 p.m.
All right, thank you. Trustee Hudson.
Good evening. Public Safety will meet in this room Tuesday, November 12th at 6:30 p.m.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else have anything else they'd like to bring forward for forthcoming events of public interest, committee or department reports? Seeing there is nothing else, we'll then go to citizen input. If there's anyone within our audience or joining us via WebEx, that'd like to participate in citizen input. If you're within our audience, we would ask you to fill out a yellow slip with your name and your address so that the clerk can get it correct for the records. And also, please state your name and address when you come up to the microphone. If you're joining us via WebEx, just please make your intentions known so that the moderator can bring you forward at the time that you're available. So, citizen input.
Okay, my name is Lynn Shower Bednars, and I live at 21 Pawnee Court. I have a real concern here with our board. I took the time to call the Attorney General and District Attorney of our state, and I'm going to set up some meetings with them to find out what's going on with these closed meetings. It's very upsetting. First of all, this Everett Friends, this plan shouldn't even be considered. There was no public hearing on this at all, no discussion, cost, nothing what it means. It's a terrible plan for a misfitted area, and the buildings aren't even attractive. The plan shows poor ideas and poor design, and it should just be banked. I don't even know why you'd waste time. And I think our board has to start evaluating what comes before you with a little bit of wisdom and understanding, okay? And who's planning the development in the village center district? Again, the neighborhood meetings. You people are going to meet in closed sessions, and I talked to a lot of people in the state about this. First of all, closed sessions, okay, are to be had for discussions on discipline matters, employment matters, considering promotions, personal histories, maybe investigation charges, discussing purchasing a property with biddings. Now, here's the thing. The Wisconsin Supreme Court said districts must balance the public right to information so they can make an informed decision. Mere citation of your statutory provisions in your meetings is not the right thing. It's not enough. Under which closed sessions will be held is not sufficient. And it's not sufficient to simply recite the statutes on the basis for a closed session. They must have enough specificity to give the board and the public the ability to vote intelligently on emotions to the closed sessions. And if public interest is strong and minutes of a closed session may be subject to disclosure under a public records law. Wisconsin law does not create a blanket privilege shielding closed sessions from discovery, okay? Which I get the idea, some people think that's what it is. Wisconsin law also does not contain any enforcement mechanism to penalize closed session info. These closed sessions are very few. You have two more again tonight on this, on all the village here. I'm going to suggest you people stop spending money. And I never hear you look at budgets and say, we need to cut here, we need to stop. We're heading for a really serious problem with our economy. And these closed sessions seem to be purposeful in suppressing information on subjects from taxpayers. And so notice of subject matter in closed sessions must be specific enough to allow the public to discern whether the subject is authorized for a closed session, okay? Taxpayers don't know what's going on in this village. You have a closed session. You're talking again tonight about, what's the word you used here? Let me see. This really bothered me.
Ms. Bednarz, were you at last Monday's meeting?
What?
Were you at last Monday's?
Yes, I was.
There was a public hearing held on the front.
I know, I'm saying there was.
Yeah.
But there's not, you have too many closed sessions for all these big issues with our
Statement,
village.
You said that we had no public hearing on the Friends property. We had one last Monday.
That man doesn't even know what you didn't, what's it gonna cost? What are we getting out of it? Where's the taxpayers gonna benefit? None of that's discussed. All you did was look at his plans.
We looked at his zoning request. Yes, ma'am.
That's
Because That's
all.
all would be the public hearing on the zoning request
So,
change.
not
Yes.
when you're planning on building a big area here and we're gonna have some
We're
some
not planning
input on
on
that.
anything. What he's presenting is his plan for the property he owns and requesting a zoning change, which was a public hearing. And so at that time, all drawings are conceptual and not in the detail that you're asking for. That's a normal process. But first, they have to go for the zoning, and for the zoning to be approved, you have to have a public hearing, which was what occurred last Monday.
There wasn't enough information on it.
In
Everything,
regards to
the only thing
zoning,
rejected
ma'am,
was
in
his
regards
plan.
to the zoning, there was all the information presented. Yes, ma'am.
What's the cost? Well, how is the village going to benefit? Where's the benefit to us? Have anybody looked at what the buildings are going to
As I
contain?
stated, that would be the first step in that process. The other information that you're requesting would come later if they would get the zoning change as they requested. But right now, as part of the public hearing and as part of that plan commission meeting, they were denied their change in zoning.
Well,
The
good.
recommendation from the plan commission was to deny.
But I'm saying that's one meeting, but there's a lot of things that have been going on. We haven't had public hearings on it. And I think we need to have more, but I'm going to find out what our right is on the public sessions because they're a little more tighter and more favorable to the public than we believe they are. So, but thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming forward.
You know, when I get done with my meetings.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you. Anyone else wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input?
My name is Jerry Weidman. I live at North 112, West 18025 Mequon Road, Germantown. I'm on the agenda, I think, as the first item here. I just wanted to give a brief overview of what's going on and where I'm at and what the request is. So I've been a resident of Germantown for about 43 years. I've been on septic and well. The septic system is failing. I hired a contractor to connect to what I thought was a public sewer, which my house is right across from Aurora. So the two Aurora facilities, we have 34 acres. The connection there, well, they filed for the permit in order to connect to the sewer. And the contractor was told, I'm sorry, you can't get a permit until you work out a negotiation with Aurora because there's a private lift station and a force main that's downstream from where I would connect. So we were denied the permit because of a private relationship. And so based on that denial, I asked the plumber to requoted it for a septic slash mound system. He had a perk test. I had a perk test on. It said it had to be mound. We applied for the permit through that plumber. Again, he comes to the village and we're denied a permit for a mound system, saying, no, you can't proceed with that because you have to negotiate with Aurora first before we're going to allow you to say that you do not have public access to the sewer. So the question that's going to be discussed today is whether it's public or private. And I would say this, if I have to negotiate a contract with Aurora to obtain a right to connect to the sewer, it is not public, it is private. I, at the request of the village, went to Aurora and tried to negotiate using what the same thing the village does, which is a ratio of water consumption as a method of sharing cost in a private lift station. They came back and what they offered to me was an allocation based on square footage. Now, there's two of us living in my house. There are 340 staff members in the Aurora clinics. There's 160 or so patients a day. And the allocation I would get of the private lift station maintenance, repairs, replacement was 7%. And it should have been less than a half. Should have been 0.3 or some percentage below that. So now where I'm at right now is I've not been able to fix my septic. So I've had backups and I've had to pay to come in to try and keep it alive while I'm being denied the right to put in a mound system to have a sanitary method disposing of the sewage at the site. So my point is, if I have to negotiate with a private party, it is not a public sewer. And until the village extends it to Lilac Lane, which is the long-term plan, which would bypass a lift station, I should not have to connect and then write a check every year, pay for maintenance, pay for all those costs that go with it. So I asked for a special treatment today to get on the hearing because it's been since July 16th that I've started this process. And sooner or later, it's going to fail totally. And I'm going to be out of my house. And so I think the approach that's been taken is incorrect. I think it needs to be resolved. I think it should be resolved tonight. And I thank you for your time.
For coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input?
Your yellow forms, would you come up, please? Yeah. Right away, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sarah Larson, Butternut Road in Germantown. First, starting on a positive note, a kudos to Clerk Ott as well as the Germantown Police Department. Last week, they held an emergency preparedness session for poll workers, and it was a great session, very well attended, and we really appreciate the attention to detail that you provide to the whole election process. It really gives great confidence in what Germantown does for the elections. Now moving on to things that do not instill great confidence. The gentleman who was just up here, I think it falls victim to poor contract writing and the agreement with Aurora and the contingency not being taken into consideration. If you read our connection statement, it says buildings used for human habitation which are located adjacent to a public sanitary sewer or in a block through which or adjacent to a public sanitary sewer extends shall be connected to the public sewer system. This gentleman is adjacent, and it shouldn't be his problem that Germantown tried to get off cheap by not having their own lift station there and entered the private agreement. It's not his responsibility to negotiate with them. Either give him the thing for his septic, or you guys take over the negotiation and maybe bite the bullet and have to put the lift station in to accommodate. He's a resident and he's entitled to receive sewer service if so desired. Then in terms of Everett Friends, I did attend the October 14th meeting, and it falls under the category of ineffective meetings and what this board is hopefully trying to turn around. You need to set a time limit on not only the public presenters of a case, as well as the folks on the village side introducing things. Give them a 10-minute hard stop. If you can't say it in 10 minutes, it's probably not worth being said. And so with that, I think you are doing a disservice to him. And I think that whole Tracy Cross report opened up a can of worms that is useless. But knowing that time is of the essence, I want to switch to, it's good to see a couple of my open records request items on here tonight, given that I requested the Freidenfeld Park and any reference to a fire station being put there, as well as the contract for Bailey Copeland. Those records requests now are about 30 days old, and I haven't received any information on that. So maybe tonight's meeting will shed some light on that. I would like clarification on item J where it says contract with Copeland Companies with respect to acquisition of properties. Is this to discuss her contract, or is it to discuss actual negotiations on a property? Because she's already been issued $20,600 of funds. And so I certainly would hope that it isn't an after the fact discussing her employment contract. Not to mention, is there a conflict of interest given that she was employed by Gray Wolf, who you all had contracted with and paid large sums of money to now engage her in this endeavor? I think I'll leave it there and pick up in another meeting. Thanks.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input?
Doug Lohman and W180N9881 Rivers Bend Circle West. The last village board meeting, I came up and I gave public comments on political solicitation and coming on to private property. That basically was on the agenda also, and during the discussion from the agenda, the village attorney made reference to you really can't regulate it because it's a freedom of speech thing. And then lo and behold, as you all discussed it further and further, lo and behold, it came out that, well, okay, we can regulate it in terms of time, place, and manner. That's the words I heard you all use. I believe the village attorney came up with the first: time, place, and manner. Well, okay. Place, public place, not private property. Manner, not to impede, on citizens, moving through that public place. That's just a thought on my point. Trustee Hudson drilled down on that a little bit and went into time on that. But, like I said, we didn't, obviously you had all heard a lot of things from a lot of citizens about hearing way too much from, the political season this year is just ridiculous, in my opinion. Trustee Hudson did drill down on that and got it down to time. So I'm just saying we can do that. Obviously, we can do that to a certain point. I don't know the limits on all that, but I once again, I want to call on the board to sit there and say, okay, we're going to make an ordinance about this stuff. Do we have to be inundated by people just because they insist on their side being heard? And that's what it really comes down to. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input?
Okay, good evening. Melanie Smythe, N140W17938 Cedar Lane. My first comment is just to say that I am for this idea of this asset manager position for the DPW. I think it's a perfect tie-in with the 5-year, maybe 10-year plan that is being drafted for the condition of the infrastructure, assets, and other things around the village. As of the 2050 plan, about 3 years ago, we asked for that, and finally we got it this year. So this asset manager tracking all of these things and figuring out preventative maintenance, also replacement costs, and best use of our budget and tax revenue is excellent. So I'm all for that. I'd like to talk a little bit about what Ms. Bednar talked about, and we do have example tonight on the agenda of 3 totally different ways in which development is treated by this village. We've got the Everett Friends plan that came before the Plan Commission and was voted down. And from what I understand, that particular planning process never actually sat down with the planning department. And I believe that's where that should happen. That's how you vet whether or not you have the costs that this lady spoke about and some of the other things that are needed to make good decisions. So I think it's that needs to go back to the planning department for a thorough vetting. Then you have the whole thing that we've been talking about since the 2050 plan that have not occurred, and those are the neighborhood meetings. Yet what do we have? We've got all of these village center secret meetings that are happening later on, which we probably won't be allowed to understand what's going on in there. There is a discussion on the village center district, so maybe that will shed some light, but that's the first time that that's been brought on any agenda to my knowledge. And so I'm asking the question again. I asked it at GGF, what was that $55,000 that was spent with Grey Wolf for the phase 3 It was approved September of last year, and we've never had an accounting of what it is, what they did, anything. There's nothing. And so I look at this and we've got Copeland companies who seem to be favored here. And then we've got residents who bring plans forward and they are not. They are gaslit. Those projects are slow walked. And then you have the same treatment of the residents because we've been ignored with these neighborhood meetings. And this has got to stop. I mean, you guys are kind of, you're aggravating and it's pathetic. It really is. Mistreatment, unequal treatment, and to a certain extent, it's discrimination of people's rights. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input?
Good evening, Scott Heffley, W159 N105 140 Farm Road, Germantown. I agree with some comments earlier, but I'll add some other things. The Plan Commission meeting last week was very interesting for a lot of reasons. Learned a lot that I didn't think was going down in Germantown, but it is. We got a situation with the Relish Inn that I've been to, and maybe other people. They were told that their staff can't park in their own parking lot connected to their businesses by the community development director and his staff. Well, right down the road, other places they can park in their own parking lots. So I hope that gets rectified. That is just completely ridiculous. Okay. Mr. Friends, I brought up last week. He contacted me to ask what I thought about his proposal. He didn't ask me to approve it or deny it or what do I think? Will I support him? He said, I'm trying to get information out. To my knowledge, he's tried to set up a neighborhood meeting. He's tried to set up a workshop here at Village Hall. He's tried to meet with community development and planning and has had no success. Nobody will tell him what's even allowable. Not even 65, 65 homes on 65 acres, one home on 65 acres. You got to have, if they're going to negotiate anything or come forth with a plan, you got to have a place to start. And I think he deserves that. Now, I know he got voted down in zoning, and tonight is just going to be because we have to take it forward, and you guys are going to probably vote it down again because you don't want it. But he's trying to find a way to develop a land he's been on 120 years. So I would just ask that you at least have a meeting and explain if anything is okay in that area, because the 2050 plan says that is acceptable for what he's looking to do, just so everybody knows. Read the 2050 plan. Next thing, the public safety RFPs. Why was this not brought back to the Public Safety Committee for vetting and review? We just throw everything up to the village board. That should go right through the committee after the information was gathered. That's why we have the committee. So they can make a recommendation. There's 4 trustees there, almost half the trustees there. They know what they're doing. I trust them. Have them decide favorable or unfavorable, then bring it to the village board and have it. We tend to subvent those committees and commissions all the time, including ones that I serve on, but that's another story. Village Center District. Here I am again on the Economic Development Commission as a community resident. Why not have that presentation, the initial one that's going to be presented to you tonight? Why don't present that to economic development? Why do we exist? We exist to help with the short and long-term vision of the economic development in the committee. It's in the ordinance, yet we are bypassed just like public safety was. There was no maps, no attachments, nothing to look over for any of us to know what the heck is going on. I don't think that's transparency and communication. Okay. Final thing is, I'll bring it up. It's been a while. 5 months in, neither of my new trustees has called me yet. I have asked them publicly many times to call me. It is not about one issue, multiple issues. I can't make you call me, but I can ask you to. Either one of you, you know who you are. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Charles Krieger. Address is W140 and 9766 Fond du Lac Avenue. I'm here tonight to reach out to anybody at all in the community, but mostly the village board. Can you help me please to resolve this issue with Waste Management's facility off County Line Avenue or County Line Road? They have been nonstop for almost 3 years now, making noise all throughout the night. And it is absolutely ridiculous. I am sick of being tortured by them. I've asked the cops to help out, and the police department has been wonderful at trying to assist me, but they have claimed they've been held up now because there is no clarification from the village whether they can do something about it. I've reached out multiple times to the village. I've been directed towards Jeffrey Retzloff multiple times. I've reached out many, many times. My wife has reached out many, many times. We've only received 2 correspondences back, and that nothing has resolved at all yet. I've reached out multiple times in person and been told that he's unavailable every time. I don't know what else to do with this. The police had said that they are told that they may have a special contract, so they don't even know if this contract exists. It's only a maybe. And second off, they said that if it exists, that they might have special treatment if it's an essential function of their business. I could get that the work they're performing may be essential to their business, but the time and manner in which they're performing this work is completely and utterly inappropriate, and especially for the time of night it's happening. Most of these occurrences are between 10 p.m. and midnight. The second set of occurrences is usually between 3:30 a.m. and 7 a.m. And it's almost every night. The only night that I possibly get off lately is Sunday nights, if that, and that's Saturday into Sunday. I don't know what else to do. I'm suffering at work. I'm suffering in my relationships. I'm suffering in general. I feel aggravated. I feel irritated. I see a garbage truck, a dumpster, and I'm angry. This is ridiculous. I'm being kept up every night. Why? Why is this allowed? I need some assistance from someone, and I need someone to actually respond to me. I don't know what else to do, and if I have to seek help from outside of the community, I will. This is crazy. I've lived here my whole life. I grew up here. I bought the property that I grew up on, and I've never experienced this in my life. I don't know what else to do other than ask that please somebody help return peace and respectability to the community I once loved.
Thank you for coming forward. Steve, could you take that gentleman's information and reach out to him this week? Mr. Kreckler, sir? Sir?
Yes,
Mr. Kreckler will be giving you a call this week. He's the village administrator.
I really appreciate that.
Thank you for coming forward. Is there anyone else that wishes to come forward at this time for citizen input? Anyone else? If not, we can then go to consent agenda.
Motion. I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items A and B as presented.
I will second that.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion to approve consent agenda items A and B? Discussion? We'll do roll call vote, please.
Trustee Warren,
Aye.
trustee Cutts,
Aye.
trustee Baum, trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
trustee Hudson, trustee Rick Miller,
Aye.
trustee Kaminsky, village president Walter. Do we have trustee Pieper on the line?
Motion passes. Next item is on new business. We'll start with new business item A, determination as to whether sanitary sewer is public or available per section 13.29 of the village code to Mr. Jerry Weedman at North 112 West 18025 Mequon Road. Give us more information and background on this new business item. Village attorney or
Yeah, I can certainly start.
Public Works?
Mr. Mortwelt is here as well. Bottom line on this is I agree with, I think it was Ms. Larson who had indicated that the contract failed with the folks at what is now Aurora. The owner there is actually a company called Moncito, who is the ones that I think developed the property. That agreement was before my time. It's easy for me to pan that off, but I just want to make note of that. But it didn't contemplate additional connections into that system. I don't know because it was pre my tenure in office as to whether or not that was based on some expectation that the extension down to Lilac was going to happen much sooner, or if it just got overlooked or whatever the case may be. I'm not really sure that's there. Bottom line on it is that under the code, there is public facilities that are there. The complicating factor, of course, is that that public facility currently goes into a private facility. And we don't have within the development agreement the right to just tell Aurora, you have to accept this flow. And as a result, that was where we talked to them about negotiating and seeing if they were able to come up with a price that was acceptable. So with that said, I think that the board has a couple options that you could do this evening. One is that you could certainly just say, nope, we are going to say that there is no service available here, using Mr. Weedman's kind of argument that if I've got to negotiate with a private party, it's not a public system. And to do that, another option would be to just simply sustain the request at this point, based on the negotiations that may or may not have happened at this point. It looks like they are approximately 6% roughly apart. He's suggesting it should be somewhere a little bit below 1%, and they're saying 7%. So they're at 6%. Average costs to run a private lift station per year are probably fairly small. So you're probably talking about at 6 or 7%, probably $100 to $150 annually in terms of costs to do that. Obviously, if there was a failure and need to replace some equipment, that might be a higher cost. Although I will note that they literally just replaced their pumps within that system within the last handful of weeks or months. I'm not sure exactly when that took place, but it's been fairly recent that they did that. We could certainly attempt to intervene in the negotiations. That would be another option, either as one of the commenters indicated that we could just pay that cost and say we're happy to participate in that, or to in some way mediate the dispute to try to reach a gap between the 1% and the 7% that's there. The other possibility that exists is because this is within our sanitary sewer service area, MMSD does charge us capital charges for the property. That is based on the square footage of the property. Right now, those capital charges are just paid for by the ratepayers of the utility. There's a component of the rate that gets paid to that. We could look to do what other communities do, which is that where you grant a deferral in these types of circumstances, you require that individual to nonetheless pay the component rate for the capital charges, so that at least they are then contributing to that cost, which we are paying as well. And then obviously you could do some combination of those approaches as well. So that's kind of the introduction. I know, as I indicated, Mr. Mortwelt is here if there's any specific technical questions as well.
Board? Trustee Kaminsky.
Mr. Weidman, where is he? What is your preference? Just to build the mound system at this point in time?
Mr. Wyman, I do need you to come to the microphone so that the people in the audience and those that are watching at home can hear you as well. Appreciate it.
In my view, there's two options that work. One would be the village contracts with Aurora and pays to make it a public system so that I can just deal with the village like every other resident. The other is to put in the mound system. The mound system, it's 30 or 40,000 to connect. It's 50,000 to put a mound system in. The comment that was made that it's inexpensive. My research said it's 10 to 20,000 a year for maintenance of a lift station, and that to replace or whatever, it's $250,000 to 400,000 or 500,000, depending on size and complexity. I just don't want a situation where I sign up to an agreement, I'm getting bills and negotiating. The reason it was even a negotiation, it said pro rata in the initial draft. I asked them to define it. They wouldn't define it. When they finally defined it, it was 7%. And frankly, it's unreasonable. And they're using the fact that I don't have choices. So to me, easiest thing, tell me I can do a mound system. I will proceed to put in a mound system. When you go through Lilac Lane, if it fails, we'll connect.
Thank you for that. I am just going to throw a motion on the floor. and that is to overturn staff's determination that service is available and to allow this gentleman to put in a mound system.
Second.
Made and seconded. Discussion on the motion to approve. Trustee Kaminsky.
I can't believe this has gone on so long. I feel terrible for you. My septic system went bad. I know how I would feel, and you've been living this way since July, and this is the first we're hearing of this, and I frankly find that kind of upsetting. And I feel like we have to let you do this and move on, and to me, there's no question in my mind, and I apologize that you had to go on this long.
Further discussion? Trustee Warren.
So if the board approves this, is there any pushback from Washington County?
No, if we would grant a determination that there is no sewer available, Washington County would issue the permit.
Thank you.
Someone else? Trustee Hudson.
I just want to say that Aurora Healthcare is my employer, so I won't be commenting or voting. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion as stated. Trustee Jan Miller.
Yes. I just want to apologize as well. And when you do have issues for anyone, if you do have issues contacting the staff here, village staff, reach out to your trustee. Your trustee should be responsive to you and these issues. They can bring them or walk them through. But we need to make this right for you.
Mr. Wyman did reach out to me last week, and this is how we got on the agenda today. I think it was Friday that you had reached out to me, and we were able to accommodate and amend agenda so that we could talk about this tonight. Further discussion?
Well, I meant back in July.
Sure. But this was the first that I had heard about it too, so we wanted to
Me
make sure we
too.
took care of
Me
it right
too.
away. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir, for coming. New business item B, Everett Friends, agent for the Anton Friends Trust and SA Technologies LLC, property owners, 65.2 acres located east of Fond du Lac Avenue and State Highway 145 and north of Donges Bay Road. Application to rezone 65.2 acres from the M1 Limited Industrial Zoning District to an RM3 multifamily and B1 Neighborhood Business Plan Development District, PDD, for purposes of developing a 570-unit dwelling and 24,000 square foot retail commercial mixed-use development called Harbor Village on tonight's agenda for action. To give us more information, background on this new business item, we'll turn the meeting over to our Community Development Director, Jeff Retzlaff.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Friends family property, 65 acres in size, is located in the northeast corner of the Donges Bay Road at Fond du Lac Avenue or State Highway 145 intersection as shown on the screen. 3 parcels comprise the total area, and it is located adjacent to the CNN Railroad and just west of the Germantown Business Park. The property is located in the Victory Center corridor as designated under the Village's 2050 plan, as shown on the screen. Land uses allowed or preferred in the district include commercial land uses. Allowable land uses include residential, industrial, institutional, recreational, and so on. We received a request for rezoning to change the existing zoning from M1 Limited Industrial to a planned development district with underlying RM3 that allows up to 10 units per acre and B1 neighborhood business to accommodate the development of a mixed-use development as shown here on this original concept plan that was submitted with the application for a total of 575 total dwelling units to be located in multi-unit buildings, 2, 4, 6, 14, and 60-unit buildings located throughout the property, and to be developed in a phased approach with 5 separate phases that were discussed in detail at the Plan Commission. Also at the Plan Commission, it was discussed that the type of a unit, the ownership was intended to be a condominium, a for sale type ownership with no rental units. A couple more graphics showing that original site plan here and this oblique view that shows sort of a three-dimensional rendering of what the full development would look like. Now, subsequent to the meeting last week, Plan Commission meeting and public hearing, the developer submitted a revised concept plan as shown here that effectively is for phases 1 through 3 in terms of the location and the number and the type of units that are proposed. 182 total units on approximately 19 acres, generally as shown on the plan above. The Victory Center corridor does allow up to a residential density of 10 units per acre for multifamily, 2-unit to 4-family units up to 6 units per acre, and a 2.2 per acre density for single-family uses. The Victory Center is intended to be an extension of the existing land uses in terms of commercial land uses along the State Highway 145 corridor, but does, as indicated earlier, allow other types of land uses in the area. The mixed-use characteristics of the proposal does dictate and is consistent with the approach of a planned development district with the RM3 and the B1 as underlying zoning to guide development. The proposal is consistent with the village's residential market analysis that was done in 2023 by Tracy Cross in terms of the demand for the for sale unit pricing for the condominium units. The developer indicated would be between the $275,000 to $450,000 range. As indicated to the Plan Commission at the meeting last week and prior to the public hearing that was held, village staff does not support the rezoning proposal. In short, the 65-acre parcel is better suited for industrial and business-related commercial uses. This property was included in the boundary for TID 4. That incremental district has been retired, but the property is situated, as I indicated earlier, adjacent to the Germantown Business Park and abuts the railroad. In fact, one of the commentators at the public hearing was a representative for the railroad who indicated their objection to the development and recommended some other type of development other than residential. The proposed maximum number of units at the nearly the 10 unit per acre maximum, in staff's opinion, shouldn't be applied across an entire greenfield of this magnitude. As I discussed with the Plan Commission, frankly, the use of the maximum density should be more strategically used within the village, the Victory Center corridor, to encourage and promote infill type development on parcels that are smaller and or challenged, whether they be brownfields or parcels adjacent to or with view of the landfill. And that a development of this magnitude with such a large mass is better suited for and should be promoted in and around the village center district within the village. Following the public hearing and the presentation by the developer that included discussion on the merits of the development and benefits to the village, the Plan Commission recommendation to the village board is to deny the proposed rezoning from M1 to the PDD with the RM3 and B1 neighborhood business districts as underlying zoning. As I indicated, we have received a revised plan that effectively is the first 3 phases of the original plan. But with that, And prior to your conversation and discussion, I would point out that the developer is represented here this evening. Everett Friends, Bob Arnold, and Jeff Grenier are here to respond to any questions that you have. And they're also prepared to make a presentation to the board if the board is willing to accept that. So.
Board, trustee Kaminsky.
I would like to have a brief presentation on the property for those of us who were not on the plan commission.
I would point out that I have the same slides up that were presented at the plan commission. If you want to go through them, you can click through them, or I can do it for you like we did last time.
Let's skip to and go right to the phasing plans, the overall plan. So Jeff Grenier, Concepts and Architecture, W125, Abaddon, Brooklyn, Wisconsin. The Krenzes hired me to lay out this lot. So our overall plan was to do a mixture of townhouses, ranches, and units ranging from 2 to 60, all in the owner occupied. And we started out a couple months ago, we were at like 640, and now this plan here went down to 570. So what we've done is created, after our last meeting with the planning commission, we created a couple extra exits off the property. And then we went into the phasing here. So our first phase, the first two phases would basically be duplexes and 6 units, and then the 14 unit, and and the clubhouse was the first phase. So this is our first, and then we also had an entrance off the old farmhouse where the pickleball courts were proposed. So all these units would either be ranches or townhouses, and all be sold. It'd be built as needed. The design that we presented was just a basic design that we came up with. These would probably be all designed individually based on the owner's requests. So first phase included the 1 to 2 years with the unit count. This is about 40, I can't remember offhand, but go to the second phase was another 60 buildings, and then the third phase was another 60 buildings. So the first 3 phases is what we proposed after the last planning commission. The planning commission was totally against our last 4 and 5 phases. So what we did is we listened to the planning commission. And they said basically 2/3 of it should be, saved for some other type of business / whatever. So we totally took that off the package, and now we're just asking for this phase right now to come in. It's about 19 acres. It's got 182 buildings, 182 units, and this is the new phase that we're asking to be approved. So if you want all the economic stuff, Bob is here. He can speak to that, but those are all the first 10 slides about number of kids and schools.
You've changed it from what you originally proposed from the plan commission?
Yes.
Just this.
To just this, yes. So.
Haven't we been here before? Early discussions with Mr. Friends, when it was first proposed and we discussed with him, he came forward with just this phase 1 option, and our discussion with him at that time was it doesn't seem proper to go for zoning changes when we really don't understand what the rest of the development will look like or what would be proposed. So as it comes forward, the people that would be at the public hearing really have no idea of what the final plan outcome is. So it's kind of a build as you go. And we're just approving the smaller amount, yet the PPD would then be placed over that whole property,
Just this 20 acres.
just the 20 acres.
Yep, the rest would just be saved as farmland for now.
Yeah, I would jump in and just point out that we received the revised concept plan last week, Friday.
Mhm.
And there hasn't been time to modify the other materials, the application to reflect this particular change. So if we were to take action, the board would take action tonight, it would have to be with that understanding if they wanted to rezone only a portion of the property. But I don't know exactly what portion of the property that would entail at this point because we don't have that sort of defined. Right now, the application before you is for the full 65 acres for the rezoning. And
That
frankly,
came
you,
out of the plan commission and public hearing.
yeah, you're correct, Dean, in that we've been sort of down this road before because we've asked for how would this look overall, the full concept plan, and they provided that information, and then they provided a phasing plan to show how they would get from here to there over a course of 14 to 15 years under the phasing plan. A number of comments were brought up by the Plan Commission, including the notion that maybe not all of it is suitable for residential and that some variation of land could be used for industrial or commercial. Frankly, just seeing the plan as I have, it's difficult to envision industrial or commercial fitting in on this particular scheme without knowing how the rest of the road systems and how they would have access into and out of the development. So it is something that needs to be looked at overall in terms of the future road system and utilities and that sort of thing. But if the Plan Commission feels, or the Village Board feels that this is an appropriate plan for this area in part, you can kick it back to the Plan Commission and we can start over.
Trustee Chan Miller, you have a question?
I do. I would like to ask you, I forgot your name.
Jeff.
Jeff. How many times have you had an opportunity to come in and meet with the community developer?
I
And
believe once.
once in this last month or
In the last year and a half.
in the last year and a half? Okay. And so this is, I'm going to say, maybe your third time showing a concept over the last 2 or 3 years. Is that correct?
We went to Planning Commission for the initial feedback, and then we came back to Planning Commission, and then that was last week, and then
Okay, so there's been major gaps, right?
I can't remember when we went to Planning Commission the first time.
The first time was in 2021, when we were having workshops on the 2050 plan. We actually had the Friends family here.
Yeah, I wasn't involved then. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
Okay.
We had a table and we thought it would best to go right and discuss with the Plan Commission, who ultimately makes the decision, to get
Sure.
feedback and give the Friends family the opportunity to present directly to the Plan Commission in sort of a workshop setting. So
Okay,
we did
what-
that, and then we've had 3 separate consultation discussions since that time to discuss variations on the plan
With plan commission.
with the Plan Commission. Yeah.
Okay, and so, but these consultations are, they throw something up on the wall and then you're sitting here like we are and trying to make decisions within an hour or something like that.
Make recommendations based on what they're showing.
Okay, so I think that this plan needs something like a neighborhood meeting because you started with input to the Plan Commission. They understand this type of thing, but what does the neighborhood want? They don't want a high volume, but they certainly don't want a waste management put there. So what is going to work? And I think you need a neighborhood meeting. And I'm going to say that sincerely. This is a family that's been in the neighborhood for 120 years. I don't think they're going to go away. And I don't want to not communicate with them and work with them or not answer their phone calls or anything. We need to communicate with our residents. We need to make things right. If you have a neighborhood meeting, try it. And then if nothing comes up, then do this. But start with something where you get some actual input from the neighborhood. And I think you kind of got that from public hearing, but there wasn't any specifics. And it was just last week, right? So how is the developer supposed to come back in 1 week with a new concept?
In all fairness, this plan is essentially the same plan that's presented since 2021, with the exception of some modifications to the number of units and the type of units that are proposed and some slight building alterations.
Understood. I understand that, Jeff.
Okay,
So,
so it's been before the Plan Commission and the
that's not
commission
what I
has-
recommended.
The Plan Commission has provided feedback and recommendations, and what's brought back is a very minor modification to what has already been reviewed. And so it gets kicked back again.
Okay,
So with respect to the neighborhood meeting term, the idea, as you will recall, under the 2050 plan, each of the 33 neighborhoods, districts, and corridors is intended to have a more thorough and detailed neighborhood plan prepared for it. And each of those plans will be prepared in a matter, in terms of a priority scheme. Mr. President, could you ask the folks in the front row to not be so disruptive? They're constantly talking, and
Yeah,
it's hard
please.
to concentrate and talk when this is going on.
Please have some decorum, please. Ma'am, please, this is a
I'm
meeting
not
that we
saying
opened.
anything valuable.
So please let Mr. Retzloff talk, and you can have your comments after you. We've already heard your comments before. So just please, some decorum within the audience would be appreciated. Thank you. Go ahead, Jeff.
The intention is that it just doesn't stop, does it?
Anyways,
Walk them out, please. I ask you.
I'm asking for decorum. If it continues to be disruptive, I will ask the police chief to bring somebody in to usher them out. So please cease and desist and have some decorum so that we can have our meeting uninterrupted. Thank you.
If it's the board's priority to do the Victory Center neighborhood plan first, we can certainly do that. Right now, the priority scheme that was laid out by the Plan Commission has the Holy Hill corridor first, the Freistadt district, and then the Village Center district. If necessary, we can ask the Plan Commission to reevaluate that priority scheme. In the meantime, if development is proposed in any one of the 33 neighborhood districts or corridors, as this has, the idea is to hold the public hearing as we have, take the feedback that we get, and decide where best to proceed. If the decision of the Plan Commission is, hey, this is a great idea, mixed-use commercial development of this type, let's go to the next step. Let's create the plan development district, create the detailed information that's necessary, the phasing plan and all that, and move forward. But that hasn't happened. It's been before the Plan Commission numerous times, and it gets recycled. And it comes back in almost essentially the same format. So at this point, and at the request of the Friends family, which I believe was made specifically to each and every member of the village board to get this project moving forward, We put it on the agenda for a public hearing. We held the hearing. It's now before the village board for a decision.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm hoping that will happen this evening.
Well, do you think, based on your years of working with developers, that you can turn around in 1 week and come up with a new plan?
That's a question.
The direction of the plan commission was not to the developer to come back with a revised plan before the village board took action.
Correct.
The plan commission made a recommendation on the application it has received and is recommending denial. That has gone on to the village board.
The choice to propose a new plan has been the developers. Not any direction received from the plan commission.
So I think that the fact that they're trying to come back and make something workable would indicate that they want to work with the village. So how do we do that if you don't like the neighborhood meetings?
Nobody said we or I don't like the neighborhood meetings.
Mm.
If it's the village board's desire to hold the neighborhood meetings along with the concept of preparing a neighborhood plan for the full Victory Center, then direct the plan commission to do that. Put that to the top of the list and we'll proceed accordingly.
It doesn't look like the Victory Center is very big, is it? How many acres?
I don't know how many acres exactly. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So, excuse me, but that was my question when we submitted this is, should we go forward with the meeting tonight or should we withdraw? And then they said we should probably go forward. So, I mean, in the past, I don't normally like to take a denial from the planning commission to the village board. I'd like to go back and rework, but
Mhm.
that's what they chose to do. And I've only been working on it for a year and a half, so I don't know all the other stuff behind that, so I can't
Right.
speak to that.
Mhm. Well, do you think that, do you have a desire to work with the village on a little bit more details?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, like they said, they've had it for 120 years. They're not going away. I mean, it's either going to stay farm or it's going to get developed into something. And the way to keep moving forward is to talk about it and meet. And I don't know if any of these other neighborhood plans that are scheduled to be done even have any development planned. I mean, if you've got a neighborhood that's got potentially 600 units to be developed, you would think that would go to the top of the list.
Sometimes volume isn't going to help us.
Right, yeah,
It's not.
right.
So I would like to make a motion. Do we have to motion for the,
There's nothing on the floor at this time.
oh. I would like to make a motion to have the Friends family work with the community development director and his staff and get more direction. And then when they feel comfortable, come back to the village board.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Trustee Baum.
You're to approve this, to work with this layout, to go back to what was recommended, that it's 2/3 industrial, 1/3 residential, to have a neighborhood meeting, which my understanding is that the applicants have gone more or less door to door and one person to one person meeting instead of having a group meeting. Because I don't know, trustee Kaminsky, if you've gotten all the emails, but I have gotten numerous emails from the residents complaining about those meetings because they didn't go over too well. And there was no response to what the residents were looking for. They were they felt dismissed. So, I'm not sure, your motion is kind of out of sequence, I think. First, we need a motion to approve or deny. If we're going to approve it, then we send it back, then we start doing motions of what we're going to do with it. But I personally have gotten several drawings from this architect between plan commission meetings. Can you look at this? Can you critique this? Can you give me some feedback on this? I've given more feedback to this group than just the 3 meetings. There
Well,
have been many things that have happened over the last year and a half, but this has been going on for 3 years. And the first plan, I've said the same thing from day one. This plan is too dense, being right up against the railroad track, being right up against a business park. The east side does not belong having all this residential to it. The residents are not looking for that. We could do some lower density housing along Fond du Lac Avenue on the 1/3 west half. So your whole top half of that drawing there can be some type of residential. The bottom 2/3 is industrial. In this configuration, you have not left room for industrial. You can't configure anything along that railroad track that would utilize the railroad track. We've said this from day one. I have started every meeting with that exact same
that's
speech.
the plan commission.
Every meeting, whether it was a meeting with the developer, whether it was a meeting with the architect, whether it was a meeting before the plan commission, I've started every meeting with that same discussion.
We still haven't had a neighborhood meeting. You are not the whole neighborhood.
I understand that, but it is not us to pull that meeting together. It's the applicant that pulls that meeting together. The applicant reaches out to the resident.
One of the districts is supposed to have a neighborhood meeting. You promised over 2 years ago that we would have neighborhood
meeting-
meetings for Holy Hill, Freistadt, and Victory Center.
You do.
Answer, please.
Every one of those districts can have a meeting to discuss the overall district. What they're talking about is one development, their desire for a development. If they want to have a neighborhood meeting about their property, they call that meeting together. If the village decides that the plan commission should move this zone to the top of the list for development, let the plan commission know, we will put that at the top of the list. But right now, we have 3 other districts that are ahead of this in having neighborhood meetings.
Well, we haven't had a neighborhood meeting in 2.5 years. We've only had the 2050 plan meetings, and we're doing a lot of building. And the only ones that get to decide is the plan commission. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, the village board decides.
The plan, it goes through the plan commission
It goes
first.
to the plan commission, and then it comes to the village board. It's not
Yes,
different
it
than
goes
it's ever
to
been
the
before.
plan
You're
commission.
not recognized to have the floor, but Meg Cutts had her hand up. Trustee Cutts.
I've been to most of the meetings when this has happened and, or this has been presented. I do prefer this latest option, and I can see what trustee Baum is saying about maybe having something more upfront and figuring out what's in the back, but it seems like Mr. Friends wants to make this work, and even though he didn't really want industrial, he's open to it now. So I would think that maybe we can somehow get him working to come up with a different plan that would be more suitable and make everybody happy. I did not like the very large buildings. I just don't think that's appropriate anywhere in the village. We're just a small village. We're not a city. And any kind of multiple thing like this, whether it's here or Mequon Road or the drawings I've seen from the EDC for through Main Street where multifamilies winding through houses, I just think that's too much in my personal opinion, but Mr. Friends seems willing to work to be able to develop his property. So I would like to see us work with him some more to see if we can come up with something that will make everybody happy.
Further discussion. What bothers me about some of this discussion is some people propose that Mr. Friends was not allowed to meet with village staff and given an opportunity to talk about possibilities for his proposed development. That simply is not true. This has been going on for 3 years. Multiple meetings over several years have been had, and options for proposed plans that fit the zoning requested were scheduled and held with village staff, including the community development director, the village administrator, the village attorney, and I myself have been involved in some of those meetings and probably have over 10 hours worth of time spent talking about possibilities of development for the zoning requested in this meeting with Mr. Friends. Mr. Friends has also gone out and talked on each of these items one-on-one with each of the village trustees and has had neighborhood meetings. So to say that Mr. Friends was not given a fair chance in regards to what should be proposed is wrong. It's wrong. It happened, and it's been going on for years until he finally decided to propose what he had. And it wasn't much different from what it was in the beginning when we thought it was too dense and too concentrated, or when it was just this. And we tried to get an idea of what else. Because if you're going to go for a zoning and a PDD, it's hard to present to the people of what it's going to look like long-term if it's just this. And what happens when you get just this is over years, people forget. And now it becomes something else. And then it turns into something else. I'd rather see the whole plan so that everybody can see what it's going to be long-term than to look at this and say, well, what's the rest of it going to be? Well, something similar probably, but it's not going to build out for 15 years. We need to see the plan as it's going to be proposed. If I'm going to approve a PDD, I want to know exactly what's in it and what's going to be in there long-term. But to continue down that mantra of this man was not provided meetings is wrong. Very wrong. Because I was involved in a lot. This man was involved in a lot. This man was involved in a lot. Hours and hours of meeting going through these plans. Trustee Chan Miller.
Yeah, I never said it wasn't fair. I just said there might be a better idea.
You made.
I did
point for
say
asking
a
this
better
gentleman how many
idea.
meetings he had with this gentleman.
That's right.
He's new to the meeting.
A
We
a
started
year
with
and a
Mr.
half.
Friendly until this man came along as the developer and choice
Yes.
developer for this proposal.
Yes.
So he's only been in less meetings because he's only been involved for about a year and a half.
Right, right.
You have the floor. Anything?
So well, I made a motion and it was
The
seconded.
discussion. Can you repeat the motion, please?
Yes. Oh,
Your request or motion, trustee Jan Miller, was to have the Friends family to work with the community development staff and when comfortable to come back. Would you agree?
yes, I would agree.
Further discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Your hands up, please.
Motion fails. Other motions?
Sorry.
Sorry. Warren?
Warren Hudson. Thank you.
Further motions?
Make a motion to approve the rezoning request.
Second.
As stands and proposed before the Plan Commission and through the public hearing?
Yes,
this.
because that's what's on the agenda.
Right.
That's what we're voting
So
for.
we all
We
understand.
can't vote for a half a plan.
That's correct. So your motion now covers as was proposed at the Plan Commission meeting.
Correct. That's really the only one we can do.
Came forward from the Plan Commission meeting with a motion to deny. Further discussion on that motion. Who seconded that, please?
I think I did.
Okay. Discussion on that motion. No discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
All right.
Motion fails. Continue. Nothing else?
No, what's next?
Bring it back. So the plan after this would be then to bring back what you have here to the Plan Commission and schedule with Jeff. Would that be the normal process?
Well, we would have a new application with a revised concept plan, preferably reflects some of the comments that were given by the Plan Commission as far as direction for what may be acceptable long-term.
Okay. Trustee Bone?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to the developer to decide what he wants to do and what he wants to bring forward. If he wants to start working diligently with staff, and I've offered my time, happy to sit down with them again and go through it again with them.
Okay.
But it's in their hands now.
Mr. Friends, any questions? Thank you. All right, that takes care of all of item B then, correct? Thank you. New business, item C, presentation on the results of the public safety buildings needs assessment by Grafe, PRA, and More Construction. Jeff, are you starting this out or?
No, I'll, I can give a brief introduction.
Village Administrator.
Thank you. Earlier this year, the village board approved a contract with a team consisting of Grafe, PRA, and More Construction to do a feasibility study of and needs assessment for public safety facilities within the village. And we have those folks with us here tonight to give us a presentation on their findings and their recommendations.
If you guys want to split the microphones, that way you don't have to all crowd around one. One at the podium and one at the podium in the middle of the floor. Or you're not stepping on each other. Do you make sure that that one's on, Brian, for him, so he can be heard? You push the button at the base so the light goes out. Yes, light out is that we're on. Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here this evening. As you mentioned earlier, the Grafe PRA board team worked with the village over the last few months, looking at your needs for police and fire and into the future. I'm Mike Paulson at Grafe, Jason Bristow with PRA, and Mike Moore and Tom Smith with Moore Construction Services. So similar team who performed for you for the DPW. Jason and PRA with their safety building expertise is a new addition to strengthen our team. Do we have a clicker? Yeah, I do. Do you want that? Thank you. Thank you. So with that's our team right there. It's went over, and we're going to get right into what Jason's going to go over. The first one, please, is the space needs analysis itself. And again, during the presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. This is a kind of a high-level review of what we formed. In your package, I believe you have a full final report that has all the details. If you want to drill down in the weeds, the details are there. But again, instead of getting here after midnight, we'll condense it down to something more manageable. So Jason, with that, go right ahead, sir.
Yeah, so Mike, thank you. I think it's important to understand that there's a series of meetings, information, space needs, and the like that are in that report. We're going to highlight some of those items here as we discuss. The first thing that we want to just mention briefly is one of the things we were tasked to do was develop a space needs analysis, which helped us and will help you all determine the space needs for both the fire department and police department moving forward. As a basis, we used current space, future needs with some of the hires that are occurring here at the beginning of 2025, and then also looked at some of those plans that have been mentioned tonight, 2035 and 2050, to help us understand the space requirements as the community continues to grow. So that being said, I'm going to move through these slides rather quickly, but I just wanted everybody to understand there was a lot of analysis done with respect to how much space would be needed for a potential new police station, and that's what you're seeing here first. All the various rooms to accommodate both current staffing, new staffing, and future staffing in their various departments, various storage requirements and the like. A fleet garage to accommodate both vehicles, canines, and the like. One too many slides, excuse me. You'll see that at roughly a 64,000 square foot police station is something that will be needed to meet the needs of the community in the future. And as Mike said, there's a whole bit of information that was used to determine this that's in that report. Similarly, we conducted a similar need for the fire station and to be able to look at what are their future needs in the entire community. And we'll talk about that more in a second with respect to locations, response time information and the like. But ultimately, we got to a conclusion that a roughly 26,000 square foot fire station will be needed to meet the hiring needs of both, like I said, January 1, the new hires, and then ultimately the 2050 plan. We also take a look at the suitability of both the current buildings, the police building, which is just down the road here, and then the existing fire station number 2. Ultimately, those buildings are both too small for current needs. They're much smaller buildings than either one of those square footages come up with. Especially on the fire station side, they will be short every shift beginning at the first of this year with sleeping space. So they'll have to sleep in conference rooms, sleep in offices, create temporary sleeping arrangements to support their staff that will be hired here as part of the operational referendum that was passed. I will say this, all the buildings are in great shape. So there's nothing, for lack of a description, structurally, maintenance-wise, that needs to occur in either of these buildings. Are they short on space? Absolutely. But the roofs are in good condition, the windows are in good condition, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a space needs challenge that we're running into. So you'll see that the study ultimately concluded that, as I mentioned in the space needs, a roughly mid 60,000 square foot new police station will be needed. From a fire standpoint, a roughly 25,000 square foot station will be needed, along with, and we'll talk about it further in the presentation, additional space at the existing fire station number 2 to accommodate equipment and everything else that's delineated in that report. So ultimately, those are some of the conclusions that were reached in the space needs analysis. Real briefly, I'll talk about just some concept designs that were developed for both the police department and the fire department in some future locations. We'll look at what that means, those future locations will be in a second. So concept for the police station will be a 2-story building, approximately 30,000+ square feet on 2 levels. The lower level will be predominantly a fleet space, sally port, and some impound space that is currently housed in the existing station. Some of those needs are met by the 4 buildings that are just down the road. Some of those needs are currently not being met. The second floor will consist of predominantly the office space. Those needs are currently being met in the 2 buildings that they occupy on the same campus, 50 feet apart or whatever that distance is. And then also some ability to have some of the training opportunities that they don't have now in their existing facilities, along with allowing for future growth. We'll talk about the sites in a second, but this 2-story stacked design allows for some taking advantages of some of the grading at the preferred site. We've also found from our experience as an architecture firm doing these types of buildings that this 2-story design is more cost effective from a pricing standpoint and also more effective from a staffing standpoint. Otherwise, you end up with like a 60,000 square feet that's 300 foot long and very inefficient from a building type. So that is what you're seeing here. Again, this is a concept design based on that space needs. Certain isn't a final design by any stretch of the design parameters, but a concept for how this building could look. Similarly, a new fire station you'll see here is essentially divided into 2 pieces. There is the apparatus bay, the equipment that's associated with the firefighting and EMS type needs. And then to the right is the living and sleeping quarters along with training offices and the like. This fire station, I think, could be called the new headquarters when it potentially would be built. And again, it's in that 25,000 square foot range with a multitude of spaces that replace undersized or not, or spaces that don't exist, within the current fire station. So with that, it's kind of the space needs, how we got to a potential building size. And again, that building size would still need further design, but from a concept standpoint, I as an architect feel, and our team feels that they're close to what the needs are for the growth in both of those departments. That being said, there's some discussion about where potentially these stations could be located.
The slide you're currently looking at is the response time. The 2 slides on the left are the 2 possible locations for future fire. The one on the far right is possible location for future police. We did look at other sites in addition. They're in the final report, but we kind of want to show you the highlights of the 3 sites that worked well for police and fire. On the left, you'll see actually all 3. The red star represents either the existing fire station location or the existing police station. The blue star represents the future proposed location for fire to left, the far right future police, and again, the blue star. So what this map shows you, take them on the furthest left. Again, the red star is current fire station number 2. The blue star is the proposed fire station location, Bradenfield Park. And what that's showing you there is this response time with the colors. You can see with that location, almost due east of the current location, it serves the village rather well as far as response time. The middle slide shows if it moved further, other site we're looking at is Donges Bay Road. The blue star slides further southeast. You can see in the northeast corner of the village, the response time gets to be a little slower, perhaps for your liking. Far right, again, police, almost due north of the current location. The response time's pretty evenly split around the village. As we all know, fire response times perhaps a little more critical with their work than police as far as the actual time involved. So drilling down a little bit further into the 2 sites for fire. The first one you're looking at there is Freedomfield Park, about a 53-acre sports complex. Obviously, it's a parcel the village currently owns. There is sewer and water from the vicinity. It does fit the proposed fire station rather well. It works as a feasible location for consideration for fire. And all these are going to have caveat of further investigation. We get into design for phase 1, soils, bedrock's always concerned at any location within the village, as we all know. So we'll look into that further once we actually select the site. The next slide is drilling down a little bit closer site view, site plan of what that possible fire station could look like at the park. You see it's tucked right, you pull in, and we're taking advantage of the existing parking lot that's there, and it fits in again rather well with the current configuration. The second site we consider for fire as a possibility is on Donges Bay Road. It's owned currently by Ben's Oil. Again, a site that works well. There is sewer and water within the vicinity. One, I guess, negative of this parcel is it's not currently owned by the village. So if this were to move ahead, the village would have to negotiate and purchase the actual property, which of course increases the project cost. Again, a blow up of that site plan. And then moving on to fire, we really, in our determination of our study, there's really one location that worked well for police, and this is it. This is the previous DPW site on Division and Fond du Lac Avenue. And what you're looking at here again is the proposed layout of the police station on the site. I'll zoom in a little closer. Obviously, it's village owned. It's a positive. And there is about a 10 to 11 foot drop across the property, which is actually a benefit for this. This is a possible location to serve well for what Jason talked about earlier, as far as a police station, having the multiple levels work out rather well.
Mike, the one thing I want to add with respect to this site is when we were hired, one of the challenges that the team was given was to consider a police and fire station together in what I describe as a public safety complex. We can call it whatever we want, but essentially a joint police station and fire station. I just want to point out this site from a response time, we don't have an analysis of it, but it's really close to their existing station. I could be wrong on the distance, but let's call it about a half mile apart. It's really not ideal. So one of the conclusions reached early on in our work of the study was that while this site is probably ideal for the police station from an access standpoint, land control standpoint, and as Mike mentioned, the grading allows for that 2-story design that we found to be efficient and cost effective. It doesn't work from a fire station standpoint. The response times are even worse than were diagrammed in those diagrams that you saw, but this site is diagrammed in the report. Also, they're too close. So the northwest corner of the site doesn't, of the municipality, excuse me, I said site, meant to say municipality, really still has inadequate response time coverage from the site. So I think it was important to understand that when we looked at this site, and for lack of a description, centered on the fact that this is probably a good location for a future police station, it is not a good location for a future fire station. And maybe not good, not ideal is probably a better way to say it.
So you mentioned earlier, one positive is the village already owns the property. One negative is sewer and water is rather far away. We actually studied this. We looked at the possible DPW ending up at the same site. Sewer and water, as you show in this diagram, here's about almost half mile away. So obviously that adds additional cost to the project design. Get sewer and water there, and of course it goes back to the bedrock issues that I mentioned earlier as possible project challenges. With that, I'll turn it back over to Jason.
The image that's up here is a concept design for an immediate expansion to the existing fire station. So this expansion and remodeling, so it's an addition and remodeling. The left side of the screen from the gold, which is our color for the apparatus bay, and the space associated with that from a supply standpoint, turnout gear area and the like, everything to screen left would become what we might categorize as office functions. So there's some office space in there, there's some training space in there, those types of spaces. And then everything screen right, if you will, of that gold apparatus, the apparatus bay in the gold color, what we would call the living area of the station. So that's a segregated design and we found that that's most cost effective when you're fighting a fire. And the fire staff are here, they can certainly talk about this more, but we're finding that the best designs and the ones that are best for the firemen themselves and firewomen themselves is to separate the day functions from the office function, especially the stuff associated with firefighting. There's carcinogens and reasons for doing this. So this design clearly separates them. It provides individualized bunk rooms, which we found in our studies and our work to be most cost effective for the health of the firefighters. You know, they're waking up at all times of day, all times of night, serve our citizens. And so the individualized rooms are something that we found to be most cost effective when we've designed them. The morale is higher in those types of settings. So you'll see individualized bunk rooms in the upper right corner of that, a day room, if we can call it that, essentially a living and eating area for the staff. And then that would be in an addition. And then everything to the left would be remodeled. The apparatus bay currently is not large enough, doesn't house all their equipment. They and certainly can speak to it more, and sometimes they have equipment that's outside. And obviously, if you have a truck with water, and it's not ideal to be outside in the winter, but they're managing. And so this design is a remodeling that would get them to where they need to be to accommodate their current staff that starts in 2025. And I don't know if the fire staff can talk about it, but I believe if I've heard everything correctly, some of that staffing is already in place and ready to go on January 1 or whatever the day is, and they're shaking their head in the affirmative. So this is a design that would allow them to have proper staffing, proper separation of space, and proper storage. They're currently storing equipment. For instance, one of the areas they store items is in their hose drying tower. So when they need to dry a hose because they've gone out on a fire call, they've got to take all the storage out of the hose drying area, temporarily put it somewhere else, dry their hoses, and then put it all back. So there are a number of inefficiencies in their current station. I hope I explained that plan well enough and to understand where we came from. From an office standpoint, this design would get them through where they're at right now, but does not solve all their staffing challenges from an office standpoint. The new station would be needed to ultimately house the 10 staff that would be considered lieutenants, sergeants, and battalion chiefs and chiefs in their design. So that's the concept for a expansion in addition to their existing station that would allow them to meet their current needs for space, storage, and equipment. So we took a look at some initial cost estimating, and I think Tom's going to speak on that.
see this. My task was to work with Jason on reviewing all the concept plans, putting together conceptual budgets for each of the sites.
Excuse me, Tom, can you please make sure to speak into the microphone?
Sure, sorry. Again, my task was to put budgets together on the concept plans. So that Jason and I had a long dialogue on what we felt was how these buildings were going to be built and the components that were going to be built with. And this is a summary of the 4 different sites. Column on the left identifies the direct construction cost, estimated professional services, owner items, and contingency for total project cost. Fire station number 2, which is the addition renovation, which is the last slide that we have seen. You can see the summary cost is approximately $5 million, which would give us the renovation and building expansion, and the need being fulfilled for for January 1st, they're going to have the additional staff, which is going to solve that problem long term. The next column, the center column, would be the new fire station. And this one is on Air Drive that we spoke of. This one here, again, the cost breakdown on this is approximately $17 million. And the third column is the fire station on Donges Bay. This one is approximately $18 million. And this one here is the one that Mike referred to. It's basically the same design at different sites. But this one here, sewer and water is an expense on getting it to the site, which is approximately $2 million to get it to that site. So that's why there's a cost difference. And then a police station, which is taking over the existing DPW's location. And that's approximately $30 million to construct that facility.
And thank you, Tom. One, fire station Donges Bay has an asterisk because that does not include the land acquisition costs, which the other options, it's already village-owned property.
The other thing I would just add with respect to costs is that we also did cost compare those to some other similar type projects that all of our companies are working on, and we're finding those to be in the realm of what we've seen for other municipalities that have similar buildings. I mean, none are exactly the same, but it's certainly in the range of other projects that we're seeing occurring for these types of buildings.
I'm just going to finish up with possible project timelines for what are 3 distinct projects. The first one, the most pressing one, we touched on earlier because of staffing, is the remodeling addition of fire station number 2. The next agenda item is actually an amendment from the same team to begin working that project immediately, with the goal of having plans ready for bid in March of 25 and construction of 25 to be able to house those new firemen and firewomen at Station 2. Moving into 25 as well, we'd begin, if the village board moves this way, possibly begin the design of the new police station in 25 with the intent of constructing 26. And then the fire station headquarters, the new fire station, design in 26 with construction in 27 as a possible project timeline. With that, we'll take any questions you may have.
Trustee Rick Miller.
Yeah, I know there's going to be questions from residents about the old fire station 1 on Park Avenue and Fireman's Park. Was that ever a consideration? Could it be used again for a fire site?
That's Jason.
We did talk about that in some of our discussions. As I understand that former station, which hasn't been occupied 10 years, maybe longer, I'm not sure. The site is too small for current operation, and the building is drastically too small. So ultimately, that was the conclusion that site didn't meet the needs from a space standpoint.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Can you go back to that page where you have all the costs there? So, okay, with that, okay, I've got my costs. Can you go to the diagram for the Fire Station 2 addition renovation? That would be it. Yeah, so you were talking about doing a two-story building for the police. Why is that not considered here on this property?
Two reasons. One, the building is currently not designed to allow a two-story addition to go up. So you'd have to essentially tear the roof off, then you'd have a building that is completely unoccupiable and then build on top of that. So from a standpoint of design, it's not designed for that. Secondly, we found that an arrangement like this from our design experience is ideal. Single story, allowing, you'll see, you have a laser pointer? Doesn't work on the TV. I'll motion a little bit just to answer the question. So there's a design standpoint when designing fire stations to be allowed to have multiple ways to get into that apparatus bay to lessen the time for fire staff to get into their gear and get out. And having stairs when there's an emergency and you've been sleeping for maybe 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours, and then trying to go downstairs is just not something that we've found from a design standpoint to be practical and safe. So those are the two reasons.
Well, what about those poles that they just slide down?
We don't use them anymore in fire station design.
Darn, I thought that would be very efficient. Anyway, so how much acreage is at this place, at our current Fire Station 2?
I don't know the acreage, but it does, this fits onto the site. There's an existing Survive Alive house that is there that would not be changed by this design. It would,
Okay.
the fire station would move closer to it, obviously, but that Survive Alive house is not, or does not need to be impacted by this design. So this current area where we're proposing the addition is essentially green space right now.
Okay. Is there more green space? That's my question.
Yeah, more green space, sure. There's more green space to the, I got to get my bearings here, east of the Survive Alive house. And then there's also a decent amount of green space on the west side of the fire station to get to the roads and the parking lot. So yeah, I feel for a fire station, there's a decent amount of green space there.
So why couldn't this be the premier station for the fire department?
This, when you say premier, I'm assuming you mean headquarters, and that
Headquarters, there you go.
station would be the primary location. The response time from here to the far northwest corner of the district is not good. It's not my area of expertise, but we've been told by the Chief Delane that there actually are some current insurance penalties that those in the northwest corner of your district, of your municipality, are paying because of the far location of this fire station.
Northeast.
Northeast.
Sorry, I misspoke. Northeast, thank you.
All right. And then you had something on Friedenfeld Park. A building.
Correct.
Oh,
Yes, that park is the #1 recommended site for a new fire station. That's all. Correct. And there you're seeing it in kind of along the road there in site plan.
okay. I personally have a tough time with this location. I don't want to take away any, parkland. That's #1. #2, what if all these kiddies are outside playing football, soccer? I just think it's a high traffic area with children. And it that makes me very nervous. If you go back like 2 slides, there's a rectangle with a, oh, maybe it's the other way. I guess there, this one. This is Donges Bay. What is the purple rectangle on the bottom of the of this?
Stormwater pond.
That was the location of a potential future stormwater pond that would be needed for stormwater management on that site.
And this building site was for what? Please?
Potential other location for the future fire station headquarters.
Oh, okay. Do you know if there's bedrock there or wetlands? Is the purple wetlands?
It's a low point, but it is not a wetlands, but no idea if there's bedrock there. We have not done any soil analysis or soil investigation to be able to determine that.
What about the kind of blacked gray area around the perimeter? Is that just beautiful shading or does it mean something?
I believe that's existing vegetation on that site, and that's why it's showing
Okay.
in that kind of different tone.
Okay.
Trustee Warren?
I have several questions. So this is called, the agenda item is the public safety building. And maybe you explain this, but why aren't we looking at a combination of the two? Is there that, I'm thinking there's an economy of scale here, but maybe that doesn't apply with two separate services?
I
Either
believe
one?
I mentioned it, but I'll go ahead and try to address that question again. Early on during the study, it was identified that the existing DPW site would be, and potentially would be, ideal, is the word I'll use, for a new a new police station. That site does not solve any of the response times challenges that the fire department has, being that it's roughly a half-mile away from that site. So there was a time during our analysis where the entire team made a decision to separate the two.
But that was an issue with just that site. You've got two other sites you're looking at.
I think he spoke about the one on Fond du Lac Avenue. Not working as a public safety
Yeah.
was a reference that he had made.
Yeah, ultimately, we looked at a number of sites. I mean, obviously, we were given sites that are either available because the city owns them or potentially they're available for a sale. And those were the sites that we were used based on input provided from the village.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm missing something here. So why aren't we looking at combining fire and police into the same building?
Maybe I'll answer it a different way. Ultimately, we couldn't find a site that addressed the response times needs of the fire station and the needs of the police station.
So they have different requirements for response times?
Yes. So a fire station, usually in a fire department, the response comes from the station itself. In most of the time, I want to make sure I'm grabbing the right adjective. Your standard police calls are addressed by policemen and policewomen that are out in their vehicles. And so response times have differential requirements because of that.
I would assume that if we could do that, we'd save a lot of money instead of two separate buildings for valid reasons that you state. But if we could combine both into the same building, there's some economy of scale there. I mean, just generically speaking.
Generically, yes, there could be some savings if the buildings were combined.
Any communities around us do they have combined public safety building? Do you know?
There certainly are some. We've designed some where the sites allow that to occur, but I don't have any examples, in the near vicinity.
Okay. Menominee Falls is like that? Okay. So we talked about the existing station number 2. And you talked about the remodeling, adding on to it, but you kind of stopped short there by saying, but this doesn't address the ultimate needs. Why aren't we using that as an alternative to address the ultimate needs? To me, that's short-sighted to remodel this thing and saying that in 10 years, this won't be big enough.
During the course of the study, was information provided to us by the fire department that, and I'll get it right this time, the northeast corner of your municipality currently pays higher property insurance rates because of the distance and response time from that current site. The fire department and identified a need to create a site on the opposite side of town to better serve the entire community and provide better response times. That's the reason why we're proposing ultimately 2 stations.
Okay. I read through most of the report. Is there a decision matrix in there as far as how you selected these alternatives, the criteria that you used? I saw the spreadsheet that you had before, but, you know, important things like existing utilities, response times, things like that. Is there a matrix lining that all up with all of the alternatives?
Looking for like a numeric value to it, no.
Just the
But we had,
decision matrix?
yeah, we just listed all the pros and cons for each site. And a lot of this was done, as we looked at multiple sites, we had multiple meetings with staff, police and fire staff, and obviously took their input into account, which led to the results you're looking at here tonight.
So it's in there. Is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry?
So it's in there in your report?
Each site, what we looked at for, yes, each site has a very detailed, much more than I showed here tonight.
I can interject if you guys would like. This is John, Fire Chief.
I was going to recognize it,
Is
John,
that you,
after
Lord?
Trustee Warren was through. Trustee Warren, are you complete?
I have one more question.
All right, one more question, then I'll recognize you, John.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So what did you use for your, I'm used to calling it design year, right, Mike? Percent growth. You know, that's driving everything. It's driving your square footage. What was the percent growth? We know we're bringing on more police and more fire, but beyond that, what are your assumptions?
I don't want to characterize we use percent growth. We use the current needs, future needs, and then also looked at based on the information that's provided in that 2050 plan to get to the ultimate staffing. Am I characterizing that right, Riker? Thank you. So it was based on those plans, not necessarily a percentage saying there'll be this amount of incremental growth, but saying, okay, we know what we need today. Here's what we know we need in the short term, and then here's what we need in that 2050 plan that's been developed.
Thank you.
All right, we have Chief Delane joining us via WebEx. Chief?
Yeah, sorry I couldn't be there tonight, board. I had a family medical emergency. To answer some of the needs about the fire station location needs, our last ISO rating, which is the Insurance Services Office, which sets the fire insurance rates, showed us a deficiency in the northeast corner of the village. Basically, any area of the village that is unhydranted, that is more than 5.5 lane miles from a fire station, gets a rating of 10, which is the worst that you can get. The rest of the village is rated at a 3, with the best being a 1. We are trying to find a location that would allow us to be within that 5.5 lane miles, that would lower the insurance rates for the residents in the buildings on the northeast corner of the village.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Cutts?
In the other packet, the more detailed packet, you have a safety facility site number 1, which is on that Donjas Bay, the same for the fire. And this said it would combine both fire and police, yet there's no, and it says it's a viable site, but you have no financial numbers with that, and you're not speaking to that. Why is that?
I don't think you have numbers for that, do we, Mike, Tom? Yeah. We do not.
The response that was provided is that we were not, as the course of the studies we went through, as I said previously, and Chief Delane explained it much better than I, there was a decision made to separate these buildings. So no, there is not a, as the question was asked, there's not a cost analysis for the combined building on that particular site that Trustee Cutts referenced.
but originally you were referring to the old DPW site, and that wouldn't be a good site for both. But in here, it says that it's a viable site for both, and there's just no more, there's not further information on that.
Yeah, I think the further we drill down into the old DPW site, it would not fit both fire and police on that
I'm
property.
talking on the Donjas Bay, the
Oh, Donjas
Benzoyl,
Bay.
which is your second
Yeah, Donjas Bay.
recommendation for just fire. You also have an option in here for fire and police at that same site.
Correct. Initial views of that, police and fire would both fit on that site. As Jason alluded to, as we talked to both chiefs, that was not their preference to have them combined into one. So during the project, last week became to split the two buildings.
So, all right, so that's just a preference from the chiefs.
Yeah, I mean.
Correct.
Okay, so for the police station, I saw that you guys looked at the current Quick Trip and that wasn't viable. Was the bank that was across the street that Quick Trip is looking to move to, was that taken into consideration? Because that's got 2 exits.
I believe it was, go ahead, Jay. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say it was, I believe.
Too small.
I think also that maybe under contract, I think was some of the direction that we received, so that if I remember correctly, that wasn't a viable site.
Okay.
Discussed initially, but determined not to be viable because it's our understanding it's not available.
All right, I have one last question, and I don't know if you guys can even answer this, but the intersection, Division Road and 145, there's a lot of accidents there. It's not really a good intersection. Is that something that would be fixed? That's a state issue that has to
There-
be addressed, state highway?
Actually, there's a proposed roundabout by the state, which is going to be very helpful to help eliminate those accidents. Let's say actually a positive for a future possible police station.
All right, thank you.
If I could just add, expand on one of the responses. There was a lot of time that the consultants and project team with the public works director, the police chief, the fire chief, and some of their staffs looked at the possibility of a combined. I think I would state it a little bit longer. It wasn't, I don't want to mislead anybody. It was not that the chiefs or the staff had a preference of not being together. They could not find a location that worked for both of them. That there were specific locational concerns that they had. We heard a little bit about the fire department and their locational concerns. I think the police department felt that Donjas Bay site was not a good site for them, for their operational reasons. So I just, for people who are listening, it wasn't just that they didn't want to be in the same building together. It was that they did not meet the locational operational needs of each department.
Trustee Baum?
On it. So I look at this plan and I look at all the yellow stuff. I look at the beige room in the lower left quadrant of the yellow stuff. I look at the large conference room below the yellow stuff. I look at the public toilet rooms below that large conference room. And I see that all of this can be utilized by both police and fire. And this is a little more than a third of this building can be utilized by both groups. When I first was going through this over the weekend, I said, put a combined building on the Friedenfeld Park site. I understand that it's a little farther away from where the DPW used to be, but when our police officers are out cruising around most of the time, their response is not from the police station, it's from somewhere else. So is that response time for the police department as critical as to where the police station would be located? First question, I don't need an answer for tonight. The concern of the kiddos right next to the police station, we've had that at Fireman's Park for how many years now? And I don't think anybody's been run over by a fire truck. So I think we can put kiddos next to a fire station. We just keep them away somehow. And I'm sure we can do that with the Parks Department. I see that sharing of spaces as a significant cost reduction of an overall building. And I think that's why we originally started talking about a public safety building, is combining those shared resources, having the two chiefs close to each other that they could engage in stuff together if there was a large enough emergency. So I would like to see a combined solution on Friedenfeld Park to see what the economics would be of that.
Other questions? Concern on Friedenfeld Park being, it would take a portion of that away. Is that your first choice for fire department? Is on the Friedenfeld Park site? My only concern there is, of course, it does take a portion of that park away, but we are putting a significant amount of residential across the street from that.
Yeah.
There are sirens that go off all the time. Currently, the fire department's in a industrial park. So once they hit the main roads, of course, you're going to hear sirens, but when they start out of the building, that might be a little disruptive for residential, that's strongly residential in that area, not against the site, but it's something to consider. Because now you have people buying homes there and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I didn't know that there's going to be a fire station. It has its advantages, for their insurance. It has their disadvantages for the amount of calls that this village would run out of that particular station. Trustee Ball?
May I retort to that? If your preference is then to go to the Ben's oil site, which there is a option for a dual building there, I'm okay with that, but I just recognize the fire departments need to access the northeast quadrant of our community. And yeah, they're always coming down my street, fast and loud.
Chief Delane has his hand up again, and then I'll go to to Trustee Hudson after. So Chief Delane?
You have to wear a red shirt.
I respect the fact that the residents in that area would have an increase in sirens. However, the goal at that point in time would not be to run both fire stations simultaneously. They would be more along the lines of splitting the village into sectors. And if a call is in one sector, one station would go, and if it's in another sector, the other station would go, unless, of course, it is a bigger incident, at which point in time then they would go. So it would be an increase, but I don't think it would be a huge increase because essentially things would be divided in kind of half.
Okay, Trustee Hudson. Thank you, John.
So if I add these three plans up, it's approximately $52 million of spending, if my math is correct. We owe it to our citizens and our taxpayers to see what a combined building will cost before we move forward. I would like to make and to me, the location is somewhat secondary, but I am interested in a cost comparison between the remodel, the separate police, the separate fire, with one single police fire and the remodel. And I would like to make a motion that is brought forward to this board so we can see those numbers.
This board or public safety?
Well, I'm a bit puzzled as to why we skipped public safety, but I'll deal with that outside of this room and outside of.
Can include it in your motion if you want to bring it back.
So my motion will remain back to this board. Thank you.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion, Trustee Warren. Oh, you're the second. Trustee Jan Miller.
For discussion. I understand that, I agree with the motion. I was surprised that there weren't any updates at public safety, because I do attend those most of the time. My question is, these ratings, the ratings for the insurance, the ISO, thank you, fire insurance rating. So the fire insurance rating, I believe you stated, affects the residents. Does the fire department itself get some sort of lower rating? Because we're not in the, we're not a 1 or a 3? Does it impact our? Yeah.
We have a
Our
response time.
insurance.
Yeah, we have a response time that we have to meet of 8 minutes. And the zone in the northeast quadrant is 10 minutes away from the fire station. So therefore, by moving the fire station further east and either due east, our response time goes down, which improves our overall rating for the overall village, which reduces the overall insurance for people throughout the village, is what I recall.
And for our own buildings?
It does not affect our buildings are at this point all in the water service area, and are in the part of the village that is rated higher or rated better, I should say. So it does not affect what we're paying for property insurance.
But are we rated by the state or some other fire entity?
We have response time requirements that are nationally predicated
Okay.
that we are supposed to meet. And this helps us meet those standards, which gives us a better rating on a national scale, which then translates into lower insurance rates for the residents of our community.
Further discussion on the motion? Trustee Kaminsky.
So would the Donges Base site be helpful in that regard because it's more of a straight shot to northeast Germantown, or will it not be helpful at all when it comes to the ISO ratings?
The Donges Bay location is farther south, so that's the center map on your screen right now. And your northern eastern quadrant is still in the red. It
So
is
it's still,
outside of the
okay,
response zone. So to get the response up, you need
Yeah.
to go up farther, north farther.
you know, and I understand that. I don't want to take away Friedenfeld Park. I mean, we have not expanded our parks in this community in a long time. The last thing I want to do is take away like 20% of a park or something for this. But then we're looking right now at sites that are available right now. So 6 months from now, it could be different. I mean, hopeful. I mean, there's farmland out there on Mequon Road. I mean, who knows? I mean, there might be some other possibilities. But I really don't like the idea of Friedenfeld Park. And I do like the idea of combining police and fire. I think it makes a lot of sense. So I don't know what that means. I mean, it's kind of a big challenge to find what we're looking for. But I agree with both of those things. Leave Friedenfeld Park alone, but find a site where we can combine them.
Trustee Hudson.
Well, so that's why I was a little, I guess, caught off base. So when we did the DPW building, we figured out what building we needed, and then we figured out where we needed to put it. And this seems to me that we're following somewhat of a different process. And it isn't logical from the prior experience and where I sit. And we all know putting anything on the DPW building is going to cost $2 million extra for sewer and water, which is why we chose not to put the DPW building there. So I really want to see the cost of a combined building, and then the board follow the same process that we did for the DPW building instead of this. All due respect to the people that did the work. I just wonder if maybe the request was not Clear. Thank you.
Trustee Chan Miller.
So I'm going to go back to the current fire station number 2. Perhaps it doesn't exceed the or meet the 10 minutes, but and you didn't exactly know how many acres it is, but it seems like there's a lot of property right there. So is that it? Is that a space where you could put a combined public safety building?
It's 2.6 acres.
Okay.
Thank you for that. I didn't have it on off the top of my head. There's nowhere near enough space on that site for a combined public safety building.
Okay.
Further discussion? The only thing that I would add is, everyone has input and good reason to add these discussion points. But for a matter of this importance, I'd rather have it flushed out in committee than at village board. So that's why I asked for it to be placed at public safety. Now is the opportunity, since we're bringing it back for other discussions, to bring it back to public safety and discuss and flesh out these things and bring whatever gets flushed out to the village board to discuss. And a lot of these questions that we're asking now could be done in committee. So I would prefer that if we could get it there, but if you still want to bring it back to village board, I mean, we'll go with that motion.
I don't know why it wasn't given to public safety. I don't know why it's
You have an
here.
opportunity
It's,
to bring it
I
back,
don't know why it's here tonight.
but you have opportunity to bring it back.
Well, I assume that there was some instruction to place it on this agenda this evening. And I assume that there was a reason for that. And I didn't necessarily believe that this was the format to talk about that. Which is why I followed the agenda that it was on tonight.
Village administrator.
We followed the process that we used for the Public Works building, and those discussions were held with the village board. Because there was a lot of information, it was a very large decision for that particular process, the village board wanted to have the entire board involved in those conversations. If the board would prefer to have it go first through a committee, we can have it go first through a committee.
I'll make a motion that it go back to committee before it comes back to.
You have a motion to amend?
Motion to amend.
Because we have a motion on the floor.
Make a motion to amend that it goes back to committee.
Okay. Who's the second? Trustee Warren. Discussion on the motion to amend to bring it back to public safety for further discussion and to bring those points then forward to the village board. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Back to the motion as amended. Further discussion. Do you have enough information from us as to what we're looking for in regards to coming back to public safety and what to kind of relook at? I mean, this is a good base to start from, and it's, I don't think you're asking to throw this completely away, but we're asking for additional. Okay.
Yes, I mean, it's a process, no different than DPW was. It took 3 to 5 years to get to the actual construction. It's no different. It's a big decision, a lot of money involved. This is meant to be first stab at it, high level view, and now as we're having discussions, which is great, we can drill down into the next level of those details. Yes.
Great.
If I could.
Yeah, village administrator.
Just one final follow-up question on that. And, we have the direction, and this is a huge decision, and we, by all means, want to make sure the board looks at all the alternatives you want to, and takes the time that you need to make the right decision for the village. But it will take going back and going through this process and then bringing it back through committee, through the board, will take a significant amount of time. And the one piece that we are looking at starting to move forward sooner rather than later is the remodeling and expansion of Fire Station 2, which I think is a pretty time-sensitive initiative, especially if we are going to take a little bit more time with the planning for the other two phases of the project. And I just thought while we have this team in front of the board, if there were more questions that the board had about that particular project before the next item on the agenda comes up, it might be a good idea to take advantage of their time here.
Trustee Hudson?
It's a separate agenda item, isn't it? I mean, we're not discussing that right now.
The next agenda item is is a contract for design, which is a decision that's before the board. If there are questions on the need for the expansion, I think that is under this agenda item.
I think the need is pretty immediate in regards to the additional staff not being accommodated in the building as it stands today. And I think those can be discussed in new business item D. And right now, I think the main discussion, and I don't mean to talk for everybody, is really more the placement of and the type of building that we're looking for in next buildings of police department and fire department. I think it's all been grouped together, which is good to look at all at once, but it really becomes separate on D than it is from C. Further discussion on the motion as amended? No further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unopposed, motion carries. Next item is item D, award of the Fire Station Number 2 addition and remodel design services agreement to Grave in the amount of $419,000. The presentation, or this is what we've had in regards to this item as well?
I guess I would ask the Public Works Director to come up and talk about that a bit.
So this is a proposal put together by the same team that just presented on the needs analysis in order to execute the design phase of the Fire Station 2 addition and remodel. It would hold a series of meetings, of planning meetings, and lead up to full plans and specs developed for the addition based on the needs that were identified, immediate needs, staffing, space, that the fire department's going to encounter here in the next couple of months.
All the way to ready to build?
Through bid? Through bid. Construction administration would be a different.
All the way to ready to bid. Okay.
Right.
419,000. Trustee Warren?
Matt, was this a sole source selection?
Yes.
Based on what?
Based on, I think two things, the positive history that the village has had with the team that presented here on the Public Works facility, and also their knowledge by having gone through the needs analysis and understanding the background and the issues that have been discussed with the fire and police departments over the last several months.
Did your department come up with an estimate?
No, we're not equipped to produce that sort of estimate.
Okay.
Other than, I would say other than typically, we would look at about 10 to 15% of an estimated construction cost. So we have that based on the report. That's approximately what this is.
Trustee Baum?
So under your financial data, estimated professional services, that is your design fees for all the different groups? Yes?
I'll speak for them a little bit. I believe that number carries the project all the way through completion. So proposal in front of the village board is just through bid. That would include construction administration all the way through.
And what's the total number for that?
It would add up roughly to the total in the report, which was 800 something.
$844,981 is what's in here. And I think significant discussion has to be had if this is going to be part of our 2025 budget, that we are trying to keep at a certain point. I don't even know where this money would come from. So to approve it tonight is, I don't think is wise for us to do. So I'd like to take some time to come back to this at another, after public safety has gone through the building, decided if that's the right building, then bring this back to village board to approve that number.
Village administrator.
The funding for the design is, the portion that would be spent in 2024 is available from money left over in other capital projects that were budgeted in 2024. And could be used for this, in particular, the burn tower improvements that were funded in 2024. There is an available balance in that capital project that we could use to fund the first phase of the design contract. But you are correct that the construction project itself would have to be a change that the village board would consider on November 18th at the budget adoption meeting.
And I have been a proponent for, I don't know how long, that we can't design these buildings too far in advance, because then all your numbers are wrong. So if this board is not going to spend $50 million in the next 2 years.
This is only for Fire Station 2.
We got the other 2 that are on here. We're not going to.
Board of Fire Station 2 addition and remodel design services agreement. It's just for Fire Station 2, not for all the other fire station.
That's the $844,000.
We're only dealing with 419 for design up to bid for the addition of Fire Station 2.
Okay, and some of that was through ARPA funds? We didn't do any of that ARPA funds for this?
This particular study was funded with ARPA funding.
Yeah, $5 million is the build cost. Yeah, I think it's too much information to go through tonight to make an approval on this tonight.
The reason we brought it through this quickly is because the fire department is, and as is the police department, in the process of getting hiring lists together for the new staff that are going to be joining. And as you heard in the presentation, with the existing configuration of Fire Station 2, there's just not enough space for those folks. And, there be people sleeping in the kitchen, in offices, et cetera.
Trustee Hudson.
So I almost unequivocally, almost uniformly will always support the police station, the police and the fire, but correct me if I'm wrong. But before we put the referendum on the ballot, we asked, and multiple people asked this exact question multiple times: if our facilities would suit the needs of the new people that we were going to be hiring with no additional expense. And uniformly, every time, we were told that we were okay. And now we're being told that it's not okay. So I'm a little concerned, and this speaks to that issue of trust and transparency that we get beat about the heads so often, because we did ask this question before the referendum.
Yes, and I believe that the question was always answered with the fact that we need a new police department and we will need a new fire department.
But not that we need to remodel the current fire department immediately. That was never discussed. And if my memory fails me, tell me, because I really believe we asked this exact question.
I don't think that there was a question asked that got into the level of specifics would the additional space be entirely in a new fire department, fire station, or would there be an expansion of the existing? When we were going through the referendum, I didn't have any thought or idea that the space would be divided between a new fire station and an expansion of the existing fire station. We knew and we talked about in that process that there was going to be a need for new fire facilities. And again,
Yes, but not due to the referendum. What we are, and maybe I'm not understanding what is being told. What I am taking away from this is now we need to remodel our existing fire station because we passed the referendum. But before the referendum, the question was asked by a couple of trustees and multiple citizens if we had adequate facilities for all of the new hires that were coming in January 1st. And now we're being told that, in fact, we do not. That is different than what I gleaned or the answers that I received before the referendum.
well, Chief Delane has his hand up. Maybe he can.
Chief Delane?
Yes, I do remember that question being asked of us at some of the listening sessions. And I did reply at that if we had to, that we could fit everybody into our existing fire station. What that would mean would be that some of the office spaces will become dual purpose as sleeping quarters for some of the command staff and some of the other people. What we found by going through this facility studies is that that wouldn't necessarily be adequate, and that at some points in our station, some of the safety features and things along those lines are not up to code. And I mean that by like fire alarms, strobes, things of that sort, and including the bathroom facilities. My thought process prior to that was that yes, we would all fit by making some of those accommodations. As we worked through this, it was apparent that that was not feasible.
So thank you, Chief Delane, and I'll try to. This, as an elected body, this is exactly what we can't do with our citizens. We have got to. There's a disconnect here, and now, personally, I feel that I have to support this, but it's not. It's not what I thought we had promised our citizens. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
We don't have a motion, right? Trustee Chan Miller.
I have a question. When you, we are asked, I agree with Trustee Hudson. I'm aghast. I thought if we're doing an addition on the fire station, I thought that would accommodate everyone. I really did. So, okay, so here we are. I'm surprised, but my biggest problem is that this is coming before this board after we've done most of the work for the 2050 plan. And I'm not kidding you. So we worked hard to move things around and make things work. I want to know specifically what fund $419,000 would come from, and how are we going to get 5 million? The 5 million that actually pays for the facility. These are my questions. We are not a money tree. We finished the 2050 budget, and I didn't see a lot hanging out unless we have this pot of gold back in the office somewhere that I'm not aware of. I would like that. And I want to add that I am in support of all of our police and fire. I'm delighted that the referendum went through, but when we have these other expenses that the public is not aware that we would need this as immediately as we're talking about tonight, it's troubling.
Is construction in 2025 or construction proposed in 2026?
Construction is, if, under the timeline that was shown and under the proposal, construction would be in 2025.
All right, well then push it back. If you want further information, push it back to public safety and get your information, and that way we can be flushed out and brought forward.
I'd like to make a motion to take this item and take it back to Public Safety Committee for evaluation and hard numbers.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, discussion.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part of that. Can you please repeat the motion?
Would we please move this item C forward to Public Safety for review and funding for this project? Specific funding.
Is that how the second understands it?
C as in Charlie.
It's D as in dog.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I have the wrong. Okay,
That's
sorry.
fine.
D.
That's fine. You got it.
I didn't read.
Is that,
It's fine.
okay. Further discussion on the motion? Further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate the information. Next item is item E, Public Safety 2024 Budget Amendments. Matthew here? Yes. Mr. Uselling. More information on new business item E.
In your packet is a recommended budget amendment for the Public Safety Department based on the additional revenues and expenditures they've had throughout 2024 from their good efforts in receiving grants from both the state and the county.
Question?
Make a motion to approve the budget amendments as presented.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion?
Who seconded, please?
Baum?
Thank you.
Chan, you have a question? Everybody got the information? Sick overtime, eh? No, that was grants. You're right. No further discussion? Since it's a budget amendment, it's roll call. And it has to pass by 3/4. Thank you. All right, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Warren.
Aye.
Trustee Cutts.
Aye.
Trustee Baum.
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Hudson. Trustee Rick Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky. Village President Walter.
Thank you very much.
Motion passes. Thank you, Matthew. Next new business item is item F, Police Vehicle Squad Changeover, Explore, and it lists as ARPA funds. For background information on this, we've got our Chief of Police, Mike Snow. Chief.
Thank you. This was from a vehicle accident last year. We replaced the squad first. Now we're looking for the changeover funds. Because of the age of the squad, it was not entirely covered under insurance. The amount for the changeover is unbudgeted. So we were looking to take that out of ARPA funds.
Trustee Baum.
I'll start with a motion to approve for discussion.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded for discussion.
I kind of remember this coming through. Didn't we already say that the ARPA funds could do this?
This came through public safety.
Yeah.
We just.
Say it again.
Oh. So because
It
it's
did
too
not-
expensive, committee couldn't approve it. It got approved through committee and brought here.
Right.
Okay. So that's why I know about it.
Okay. Trustee Jan Miller.
This went through GGF and went through and it passed. It's recommended.
Further discussion? Roll call vote.
Trustee Warren?
Aye.
Trustee Ketz?
Aye.
Trustee Baum?
Aye.
Trustee Jan Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Hudson? Trustee Rick Miller?
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky? Village President Walter?
Aye. Thank you, Mike. Next item under new business is item G, resolution disallowing the claim of Michelle Sardina.
Move approval to accept the resolution to disallow the claim.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Ms. Sardina is here.
Get the caveat.
Sorry?
Get the caveat, why we always.
Right. I'm going to go to village attorney, give us some background and the reasoning behind the disallowing resolution.
Sure. So, as is always the case, whenever we get a claim, we review to determine whether or not there was anything that might give rise to liability on behalf of the village. Keeping in mind that generally we do have statutory immunity for things that are what we call discretionary acts. That would include things like whether or not you put up the appropriate signs and safety warnings and that kind of stuff. You also have to be aware of particular known hazards. If you're not aware of it, that plays a role into those types of things. After a review of the details on this particular claim, none of those factors that would otherwise give rise to liability appear to exist. And so it is our recommendation, as is always the case, to deny the claim because, again, it's better to have the individual deal with their personal insurance than to put this cost onto the taxpayers as a whole.
Board? Sardina? Yes, please. And just push the button so that the light goes out on the microphone. You get a really
Real hard.
There you go.
So I feel like some of the information that you just provided with the complaint that I filed was that there was no signage and there was no covering of these sewers that were sticking out of the road. It's right in front of the school. You have to drive on this area to get to the school. And it was between drop off and a little after drop off. And during drop off, they had signage up and coverings on these sewers. 20 minutes after all that stuff was removed, so you didn't see anything. So when I drove through, there was nothing showing that these were jutting out of the road. So that was the situation where the complaint came because they were not covered. So that's why I feel like it should be.
Was this on a construction site?
Yes.
Did you file a complaint with the contractor?
I called the village and they told me to file it with you guys.
That's the
And
contractor's liability.
so they never, I called the police department as well. And they told me to call the village, which I called the village. They told me to file with you guys.
During construction, the contractor has the liability on the construction site. So any claims such as you have should be filed with the contractor, who will then just pass it on to his insurance carrier.
Okay, so then is that what I should, I don't know who it is. They told me it was the village.
That's what I would recommend.
For? This was not our construction site? And the contractor was? Our people?
This was Wolf Paving for the 2024 road program.
So based on, it sounds like there was a manhole cover up?
Is it?
No, there's stuck to it. They graded it down and it's sticking up 2 inches.
Oh, yeah.
We drove into it, crashed the tire, and
Okay. So that, to go to the village attorney, then the claim should be made to Wolf Paving? File the claim?
Well, I can't advise somebody else as the appropriate legal steps that they should take, but that certainly would be a potential opportunity. They could certainly file the claim with their own insurance company, who would subrogate the claim, presumably by filing the claim against the contractor. There's multiple ways of
getting at the ultimate.
Should she go, so what you're saying is she should go directly to Wolf Paving?
It certainly is an option, yes.
Are you able to give that information to her so that she can contact them and start there? And then if no satisfaction is met there, or if something else occurs, can you then let us know as well? Sure. He's probably going to give you his card for email, so you can contact or call him. That would help, and that way you can get your information and we can start some process for you on the contractor itself.
Okay.
We appreciate you spending some time and coming to the meeting tonight so that we're able to provide this information back to you.
All right, thank you.
Welcome. Right. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
One opposed? Motion carries. Next item is item H. Discussion of plans for development within the Village Center District. It's this one.
Well, I'll just introduce it while Bailey Copeland is coming up to give a presentation. But this is, Ms. Copeland has been working with the village for several months now on some issues related to development of the Village Center District. And she's going to provide first some information to the village board in open session. And then the next item is a closed session discussing on some specific negotiations.
All right, Bailey,
Good evening.
you're on. Just pull it a little bit closer to you.
Does that work? Well, thank you for having me this evening. I just wanted to give a brief overview of the Village Center District and how we have made progress over the last few months. The presentation up. Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's a little too fast.
You've already seen all of those.
I was gonna say, I don't recognize. Okay, so how we got to today, as you have heard a lot of discussion this evening regarding the 2050 plan and how that has been a plan that was came up to in 2019 as the village desired to develop a roadmap to help navigate upcoming change, growth, and development. The plan was completed in late 2022, and this plan has been and will continue to be used by the community members, elected officials, staff, and other stakeholders as a guidebook to further help the village of Germantown. During that plan, there was an extensive amount of community outreach, and it was a community-driven planning process. During that process, there was online surveys, public meetings, a dedicated interactive website, planning commission meetings, and workshops. So how are we going to implement that plan? Through the economic development and in that 2050 plan, there's been discussion and prioritizing the objective and action steps, particularly those economic development objectives focused on 2 opportunity areas identified in that 2050 plan. The Holy Hill Gateway and Friedstedt District and the Village Center District. I have been asked to work with the village on the Village Center District, which was priority B in that plan. As you'll see, this is the Village Center District, and under the plan, it was divided into 32 district neighborhoods, distinct corridors, will have similar patterns and type of compatible land uses, character, and identity. So the 2050 plan sets out slightly different strategies and the next steps for the Village Center District. Despite some incremental success in terms of business retention and expansion along Main Street, a common sentiment expressed by more than a few residents is summarized in the quote contained in the 2050 plan. The village should invest in a town center, a combination of shops, restaurants, green space with trails, nicer townhomes, and public space. Carve out an area along Mequon, Maine, or other areas of underdeveloped land closer to the interstate. Right, there is no heart of Germantown. There is also the discussion of connectivity to downtown and the Village Center District. So what are the next steps? The next step strategy laid out in the 2050 plan starts off with identifying a significant or key first project. Ideally, a redevelopment project involving a large parcel or multiple parcels that the village would help assemble and market to developers, identify and prioritize infrastructure improvements, and give guidance for the redevelopment. This strategy assumes that the village is working on its own initially and then with a developer once the particular project has been identified. The 2050 plan goes as far as to develop a potential concept plan for redevelopment of the Mequon Road and Pilgrim Road intersection inside the Village Center District as a potential starting point for a significant first project. So the purpose in the next steps for the Village Center. The purpose of the Village Center is to leverage public-private partnerships to create a heart of Germantown that focus on synergies of various densities of housing and mixed retail activities, all accessible through pedestrian-friendly infrastructure. Which gets us to where we are today. So what has been done? A real estate consultant, myself, has been selected by the village to work with the board and help navigating the Village Project Center. Discussions with landowners for potential sites and discussion with Ehlers on potential financial feasibility of the Village Center. So what's next? The next steps would be engaging a planning firm for community engagement and site planning, which has been narrowed down and selected if the village would approve. This would also include community engagement to expand the vision already started in the 2050 plan. Hold open house sessions, digital surveys, and more. And then creating a phased plan of infrastructure improvements to get to those next steps to create the next Village Center District. Do you have any questions?
Where are we at right now?
What step in the process? Is that your question?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while.
I think, there have been some discussions on how to potentially acquire key parcels within the Village Center area that's under discussion. I think part of this presentation was to give publicly some of the background and some of the orientation on that. And I think what Ms. Copeland is also recommending, and some of the future other closed session items are to get in more of the discussions on these negotiations about cost, et cetera, would be moving forward with another phase of the project that would include some public participation and public input meetings.
It's just the first exposure.
Correct. Correct.
Trustee Chan Miller.
Bailey, did you say that, I may have heard this wrong, development companies have been identified?
No, that part of the 2050 plan does recommend at some point, once you get to a certain point, to start having other discussions with developers.
Okay.
Trustee Baum?
So the next steps that we're at is what everybody in this village has been talking about is what are we doing here? What's going on here? Where's the planning? Where's the municipal involvement? Where's all the residents getting their say? Now it's time to start having those meetings, start planning for some type of development. What do you want? Where do you want it? How does what what we've been talking about play into what residents will have their say on? So that's where we're at now is let's start having all those public meetings. To do that, we need to bring in, like we did last time, we brought in Grafe last time. We need to bring in another planning group to help us facilitate those meetings. They need to host the websites. They need to document all this information that the residents are going to give us. So I believe Bailey is looking to start bringing those people on. So that is where we go to in the next meetings is who do we bring on? When do we bring them on? What do we negotiate with them? That kind of information.
Is this then considered a neighborhood meeting? Banner, Retzlaff? In the sense of what the term has been around tonight?
Well, I think it's important to point out that, as we discussed earlier in the evening, Village Center District is one of the top 3 priorities for the neighborhood planning effort. Also, as discussed earlier in the evening, we have to deal with development proposals and opportunities as they come along, even if it's not in the ideal sequence in terms of timing. So, as you know, we have not started the Village Center District Neighborhood Plan within which or as part of we would conduct the various quote unquote neighborhood meetings to satisfy what the goal is in the 2050 plan. However, with that said, we do have an opportunity here by virtue of the properties that are possibly available for redevelopment efforts and as a sort of a trigger mechanism for looking at and following that next step in the 2050 plan to identify a key area to start the redevelopment effort to create a town center. So there's going to be a couple of things going on, possibly on a parallel course, but the key thing to remember is that we do need to have public input as it relates to developing a town center in this particular area, that being the Pilgrim at Mequon Road intersection, as well as the broader effort to develop as part of the overall Village Center District neighborhood master plan. The Village Center District is some 700 acres in size and goes from Freistadt Road on the north, Mequon Road on the south, Division on the west, and the CNL Railroad on the east. The Pilgrim Road at Mequon is just a component of that area, but it is at this point hopefully going to be the part that kickstarts or jumpstarts, whatever terminology you want to use, the creation of that town center and creating that unified pedestrian-friendly area that is called for as part of the 2050 plan itself. A long-winded answer to your question.
It was. Very thorough. So it's all part and parcel, and the discussions of the neighborhood itself can be had at the same time as how it plays into what would be considered the kickoff parcel.
Yes. And organizing a comprehensive and organized approach to dealing with public input, public participation is one of the things that needs to happen next, even if it's for just the Pilgrim Mequon Road Town Center area. And then later on, that will broaden into the whole Village Center District, again, assuming it's on a parallel course as we go forward.
That would include conceptual plans, not only for the area that we're talking about, which is Pilgrim and Mequon, but possible conceptual plans for the whole village center and how it ties itself together as the neighborhood plan, as a
Yeah.
master neighborhood plan?
Yes, I think, in the context of trying to take advantage of this opportunity is work in creating a set of design standards, architecture materials, and any other unifying characteristics or features that would apply to the town center that could also apply to the overall village center and that would serve as a guide for subsequent redevelopment and development within the overall village center district.
And they're all, within that, there's discussions of what type of zoning may need to be created in order to make that occur?
Yes, I would anticipate that whether it's a planned development district or a form thereof that we use for the town center, that would be also generated and used as a template for subsequent development within the village center district. Whether again, it's application of a similar PDD approach, or maybe it simply results in the creation of an overall village center district zoning set of regulations that would then apply to everything in the village center district.
Okay, so that it's clear for all, it's more of a proposal of a concept and a possible plan at this time. The only real expenditure that has been made was originally for Gray Wolf, which is transitioned to Bailey Copeland.
Yes.
Okay.
And, others can discuss that whole transition because I'm sure that's a question, but.
Input, questions, trustee Jan Miller.
Well, I'm sort of on this money thing tonight. I am in favor of, doing something wonderful with the village center. There was mention of Ellers and a potential feasibility study. So have you met with Ellers
Yes, I have.
on our behalf?
Yes,
And who directed you to do that?
the staff, the village staff.
Uh-huh. So I think that's something that it needs to be shared with the village board because I'm looking at potentially 3 buildings. We just talked about $50 million. And we just expanded our TID 9. And prior to that, the beginning of the year, we expanded TIDs 7 and 8. And
We amended them.
thank you, amended them. And that is going to push out tax levy monies coming into the village for our building or whatever, just taking care of our police and fire or whatever we have to do. So I would like a review of what those are. Now, I know we had a review at the Joint Review Board, and I don't believe that they were going to come back and have another review. And what is our borrowing bandwidth? I guess that's my.
There's
my
a lot of
concern.
questions in your statement there, and there's a lot of statements that are also made that I want some clarification on. You said that in regards to amending our TIF 6, 7, 8, and 9, we extended the time that it would pay back those TIFs. That is not true. What it did in TIF 6 and 7, well, 6 is going to finish in 2032. When we revised TIF 7 and 8, it took those from where they were projected to be at and shortened those in 8 to 9 years than what they were projected. So those TIF dollars will also come in 2032, and those TIFs will be closed in 2032. So those TIFs are shortened, not lengthened. Also on TIF 9, with the revision that we made, an amendment we made on TIF 9, if the company that we created that amendment for does go through with their building process and hit the points that they're required to hit, that will also close early in 2036. So you'll have TIF 6, 7, and 8 closing in 2032 and TIF 9 closing in 2036. That actually brings those TIF dollars to the tax base sooner than if those amendments weren't made. Mr.
President.
Thank you. There's still, thanks for the update. What?
I just wanted to, you asked about the Ayler's analysis, and that was presented to the village board this summer. Phil Cosson was here, and during a closed session item where we were talking about potential acquisition of properties, Mr. Cosson did present his results to the village board.
Correct. Those were discussed in closed session, but they were, the motion to approve that was made in open.
Okay, but it was in closed session.
It was presented to the board, yes.
Yes, thank you.
Trustee Ball?
I don't think I was privy to some of that stuff, but it was a high level overview as to what is potential. If this potential comes forward, this is what you can expect. So there was nothing specific.
Correct.
Yeah, it looked at the potential, it looked at a potential tax increment district and, yeah, how much development could occur within that district, how much of investment in infrastructure, et cetera, would be required as part of that district, and is it feasible? Mhm.
So next steps really are, I mean, this is first public review information presented. The next step, start to fill in those details of where we are, where it's at, what's possible, and what would the village residents like to see if this goes forward, if they want it to go forward, because some of that input is part of those meetings too, of what they would like to see in a village center development of this type. It's not our vision. It's based off of what we've heard from residents in the past through surveys, is more commercial restaurants, entertainment areas. So I don't have to go outside the village on a Friday and Saturday night. I can seek my restaurants and entertainment within the village. But it's all now starts discovery. I mean, it's no plan set. You're not seeing her propose a plan of this is what it is. It's now discovery and creation of through these public meetings. There's no action on this item. It's merely information.
Correct.
Action will start once we start to schedule those meetings and who we want to help facilitate those meetings, much like we did with the 2050 plan. Other questions? Trustee Jan Miller.
Who's going to do the neighborhood meetings?
That would be through the third-party consultant that would be hired.
Chosen that.
Not you.
I will be part of it, but I will not be conducting it. Yes, I'll make sure that happens. A process was done that went out for RFP to select firms that would be suitable for conducting those and have been narrowed down. And I would have a recommendation for who would be selected.
All within a regular process for any type of approval and information gathering for that type of a program, much like 2050, much like neighborhood meetings. We've put out a RFP for request of somebody to run neighborhood meetings that we've taken through Plan Commission as well, because we don't have the wherewithal to run those and gather that information. So it would be a similar situation actually as part and parcel, more specific to a part of it, but also can be discussed as a whole in regards to the whole district.
Right, and one of the things that we would like to see done is similar to what we did in the 2050 plan, have some live input, some internet-based opportunities for people to provide comments that doesn't require them to be here or go to a meeting at a particular date or time, but they can at their leisure from home, jump online. If you recall, we had a site called Social Pinpoint that we had a map of the village, and people could go and place pins on any particular part of the village and leave a comment about what something they like, don't like, would like to see done differently. I would like us to do something similar for this effort as well. So it's challenging, but it's very beneficial. And just
Right, and there's nothing currently out there to say that we're asking for approval of X purchase or X TIF. It's all part of that process of what is required, and it goes through its open sessions and whatever is necessary for whatever's chosen for those approvals. If TIF is chosen, and it's not saying it's desired, but if it is suggested and decided by this board to go forward, like other TIFs or TIF amendments have, then it will engage Ehlers and the TIF review board to go through that process. If there's other purchases that are outside of the TIF that the village needs to make or contract with some sort of consulting group, that also comes through this board or the committee of oversight to flush out and to bring that information out publicly so it can be voted on behind this board. Now, there has been a fair amount of work and discovery in closed session, but nothing has been purchased besides the payments that has been made to Ms. Copeland here. And part of that is to go forward and see what's possible and what can be done. No one's pushing that agenda. We've designated it based off of the 2050 plan discussions and some of the surveys that we've had out there that for a village-centered neighborhood, these are the types of amenity that people would like to see. And that's what we're going to try to flesh out a little bit further. Yes, Jan.
Since you asked the question, could we have an explanation of the Gray Wolf to Copeland?
Sure.
I was previously employed with Gray Wolf and made the decision to resign in June and have subsequently started my own company, but have been very involved in the project, understand the board dynamics, the project, the 2050 plan. And so I had asked to continue the work that I was doing while I was an employee of Gray Wolf, which was approved at a previous board meeting.
If I can add to that as well, just because it came up, there was questions about it. The contract with Gray Wolf was terminated, and the village did not expend the entire amount of the Gray Wolf contract. So if someone were looking just at the total dollar amount of the contract, that's not what the village spent.
Correct.
Questions? Jan?
Was that the entire 55,000?
The contract was for $55,000. That's not what the village spent.
With Gray Wolf? Was that
Correct.
originally with Gray Wolf?
Correct.
So then you said, I may have misinterpreted that.
The total amount spent with Gray Wolf was $13,750.
Okay. And so there's still a balance?
No, the contract was terminated.
Okay. Do we have a contract with Copeland then?
Yes.
For what amount?
41,000, I believe. It was for the remaining amount of the same contract,
The balance.
the balance.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Bailey? It's Trustee Baum.
So there was a open records request for a traffic study. What's the purpose of the traffic study? What information can you give the residents that were asking about that?
That was something that was done in considering whether the village wanted to acquire properties, what the value of the properties would be if development on the properties were feasible,
At what density would the development on the properties be feasible? So that was information that the village board needed in order to determine whether or not to go ahead and make offers on the properties and to that, for that matter, how much the properties should be worth and how much the board is willing to pay.
Is it not really a matter of the corner of Pilgrim and Mequon Road? What can that intersection sustain?
Correct.
Simply a matter of what can our facilities sustain?
Correct.
I'm sure that we've had our utility system people look at what the utilities can support. So it's just due diligence of getting information based on this diagram that who did it? Grafe did, that this would be a good intersection to start with.
Right, yes.
Anything else on this new business item? Trustee Chan Miller.
So was a traffic study conducted?
Yes,
Did we see this?
it was approved at a previous closed session board meeting in order to have that traffic study done.
Okay. There wasn't any issue.
What do you consider an issue?
Yeah,
What do you
define
consider
issue.
an issue?
An issue with the traffic study, too much traffic.
Based on
What
what?
else?
We don't know
What were
all
the
the information
results?
yet. Does the road have to be widened until we get developers in here to decide what we want to do? We don't know what the full allotment is. So it's still, it's part of the process.
Anything else? A lot of work going forward, a lot of scheduled meetings going forward. It's basically an announcement thereof. So a lot of nice things to talk about and discuss and see how they flush out going forward. All right. Anything else, Bailey? All right, next two items are items I and J. I is a strategy concerning acquisition of properties in the village center district and general area of Mequon Road and Pilgrim. The village board may convene in a closed session per Wisconsin statutes 19.85 subsection 1 subparagraph E for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties and investing in public funds or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, and then may convene into open session to take such action as it deems appropriate. Item J is contract with Copeland Companies with respect to acquisition of properties in the village center. Village board may convene in a closed session per Wisconsin statutes 19.85 subsection 1 subparagraph E for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, investing in public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, then may reconvene in open session to take such action as it deems appropriate.
Motion to go into closed session for items I and J
Motion made and seconded. Discussion.
with
For item I, Ms. Copeland, the Community Development Director, the Village Attorney, and I. And for item J, the Community Development Director, the Village Attorney, and I.
Okay, Donna, you get to go home.
So does,
She has to be back early tomorrow for in-person absentee voting.
all right. Any,
Correctly, it was Copeland,
Correct.
Copeland.
Correct.
yes,
Village attorney. Including.
Jeff? Right,
Everybody except for me.
correct. And the second one is everybody except for you and Ms. Copeland. All right, further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Warren, trustee Cutts, trustee Baum,
Aye.
trustee Jan Miller,
Aye.
trustee Hetson, trustee Rick Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Kaminsky, village president Walter.
Passes before we go into closed session. Our next village board meeting is after the first week. What did we say?
November 12th.
November 12th.
Right, and we have several meetings at that time, and what was determined, Village President Walter, if I may, is that we would start that village board meeting immediately following, I believe it's going to be public safety.
Right. Okay, very good. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you all for watching. And have a good night. Please turn off your microphones. We'll go into closed session shortly after we wrap up here.